Wow, they can hear us. All right, Jeff, you ready? Get in here. All right, let's bring that down a little bit. Does that work? Yeah, maybe. Go back. Well, I'm gonna go back.
Other way.
Other way.
Yeah, push away a little.
There you go, better.
All right. Whoa. Oh, Taylor's taking over. All right.
There we go. Sorry, not taking over, just giving you guys control back. What's up?
You are welcome to take over.
Yeah, take over and run with it.
We need somebody in charge.
I'm going to need to share my screen.
I'm going to start broadcasting at the Facebook. Hey, everybody. How's it going? We've got about 108 people in the chat right now, or on the start meeting, which is awesome.
Thank you.
Coast to coast. All right.
Taylor?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear us?
I can.
All right, so I'm sharing the presentation right now. I don't know if that's what I should be doing or not.
It's up to you guys. So everyone, we can see the presentation, or we can see your faces, whatever you like.
All right. So and maybe you can be you toggle back and forth, or do I do that?
You do that. You can have control if you want. What you're showing on screen looks great. Yeah.
Okay.
We can see the presentation.
Awesome. All right. Should we kick off?
Welcome, everybody.
Right. Hey,
we got actually a nice live audience
there's
here.
a good live audience here. Thank you for coming out.
More than just me.
Yeah, more than just Tom and
And Leisha, yeah, we have another. Where's Leisha? I'm right here. Oh, there she is. Where? I can't find her anywhere. No, we are here at Black Diamond Games, the official home of Legion M right now.
Kind of become our new adopted home.
We used to stream from the rooftop.
Gary, the owner, can't get rid of us. Jeff sleeps here at night.
Only sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
But no, it's great because we used to stream from the rooftop in Walnut Creek, which was basically kind of like a restaurant where we were like sneaking into an area where there usually weren't people, and it was often freezing outside, and there was traffic going by.
They were very accommodating.
They were wonderful. They were
really
wonderful. But here we've got seating, and I wish we could turn the camera around.
So should we be on like camera now? Is that?
Oh.
Yeah, I would say go ahead and stop sharing your screen, guys, so that we can see you a little bit better.
Okay, so that's
until you're ready to do the presentation is what I would say.
Let's do that.
There we go.
Okay, do you see us now?
Yes, we see.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah,
so,
we're still mastering this.
Anyway, we'll have to. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take at least a shot here of the crowd. I'm going to do a panoramic. It's such a huge, enormous crowd of people. All right, so everybody freeze. Don't move. This is a panoramic.
Eric will be in there twice. He ran around the back.
We're going to Photoshop Eric in like 11 times. All right, perfect.
Oh, you said don't move.
We'll post that online later so everybody can see. But anyway, this is fantastic. Thank you guys, everybody, for coming out. For those of you who came in person, it's great because we see a lot of the people here that were in our very first Worldwide Toast, which was, gosh, almost 4 years ago now.
4 years ago, yeah.
About
and
3
Lynn
and a half,
Hart
probably.
sent me a note. Remember, Lynn came to
that's right.
She sent me a note that she couldn't
She's
be
one
here.
of our advisors now.
New
She's
advisor.
Corporate counsel at Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
And, anyway, so
so it's been 4 years, and anyway, we really appreciate everybody coming out and tuning in. You know, after we close around, we like to do a worldwide toast and get everybody together, and not just we want to celebrate and we want to thank everyone for getting involved. Hey, I just noticed you were. How's it going?
We didn't recognize you without
your alien head.
head
Exactly.
I was wondering if I was going to. We put him in the front row.
So, no, but we like to get everyone together and not just celebrate, but also like talk about the business. So today, you know, what we've got is a pretty full agenda. Hopefully we won't go too long. We've tried to condense it. In the past, we've gone for like an hour and a half or 2 hours, and we wanted to leave enough time for people to ask questions. But the topics today that we're going to cover are going to be really more about the business, less on the like creative and which projects we're looking at and all that, and more on kind of how do we plan to make money, what is the sort of business model of Legion M, and we're also going to take you in a little deeper into like film finance and how it works, and you know where we are well positioned to take advantage of some of the opportunities in the marketplace.
Yeah.
But so the first thing we like to do, I'm not going to bother sharing screen, I think, is we like to raise a toast.
Yes.
Yeah. So
we have two very special selections here.
Yeah,
Do you want to
so
explain this one? Or
yeah, you explain this one.
All right.
I'll explain.
Okay,
yeah.
so this is a bottle of Dom Perignon, vintage.
Be careful, that thing could go off.
2006.
Eric shook it up a little bit, I think.
That WeFunder sent to us probably about 2.5 or 3 years ago after our first round. And it was really nice. They sent us a little package. We were one of their first companies that launched on WeFunder. We were literally, I think, the first company that launched on WeFunder.
All right.
No longer can.
Should we take it from the top?
Take it from the top. Who knew that? We didn't need it.
But we were also one of the
I'm
first.
still worried about that course.
We were one of the first to hit $1 million in fundraising, and so they sent us this nice package. And Paul and I didn't want to drink, and so it's just been literally sitting around. So we're hoping it still has bubbles.
You know, I would say this is a gift to the company, and it should be drank by the shareholders.
That's
and
right.
So if we could divide this up between 25,000 people, we would share it with everyone.
Everybody gets a bubble.
But yeah, just to be clear, we didn't go out and buy a bottle of Dom Perignon. Dom Perignon, this was gifted to us, and we're really appreciative to WeFunder. They've been a great partner, and I think they feel the same way about us. We've done a lot to help them kind of evangelize and grow their business, and so we're going to open this. Should I open it? Should we do it right now?
Yeah.
Are you worried? Should I shake it up?
No. Just
no, it's good.
Hey!
All right, there we are. So we're gonna pour a little bit of that, and we also have another selection, and maybe we start with the Dom Perignon, but if you want to finish with a little bit of this Legion M wine, look at that. Yeah, our new Legion M wine label. But don't get too excited. We're not in the wine business. I actually have a personal hobby that I do with some friends, and we make wine every year. We actually buy grapes, so we make a few hundred cases, and labels on there, and we gave them out to our team and staff this year. But we brought one of these in case you guys want to try it, and maybe sometime in the future we'll have an actual wine business. But
someday.
Yeah,
that's not high on
our list of priorities at all. Yeah. All right. So why don't we go into
the actual
Yep. So let's do it.
All right, well, I'll start this time. So this year, I mean, one of the things we're going to talk about a lot, this deep dive is focused a lot more on like the business, whereas in the past we spent a lot of time going through the creative on our projects. And there's a ton of stuff we're doing around the creative on projects.
Hey guys.
You know, like Terry and
Sorry to interrupt you guys. Put your camera back on so that we can see you guys. We're looking at the keynote now.
Oh, sorry. Go down here to stop sharing.
Okay, gotcha.
Perfect.
All right, how's that?
Are we back? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Anyway, so there's some great videos online, and a lot of these projects that we're going to touch on, like Emperor's Blades, there's like a whole session about that talk about the project and what we're doing and the genesis and all that sort of stuff. So what we're focused on is the business. And what powers our business is our shareholders. That's what Legion M is all about. It's all about fans uniting. And what's great is you'll see with some of these slides that we're going to show, we are really killing it in that regard and doing all the things that's right. So we have over 25,000 shareholders, and so this is a toast to 25 and rising with a
growing
bullet.
to 100,000.
So, yeah.
Yep.
So cheers.
Cheers. Thank you to everyone. Cheers. Ooh, it's still good.
All right.
Yeah.
Still
all right.
bubbles. All right.
Tastes like $100 that bottle's worth. All right, so we're gonna.
You want to give a toast to it?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, why don't I? So anyway, I wanna echo what Jeff said, but you know, and I think one of the things as an entrepreneur when you start a company, you always have to be pretty excited about that company to kind of quit what you're doing and dedicate your life to, you know, making this new vision happen. And one of my tests when I'm kind of in startup mode is, how am I more bullish about the company now than when I started it? Because in a lot of cases, you start a company and then you hit reality and you're like, wow, this is going to be harder. Or, you know, and it's always harder. But, you know, are you as excited about it 4 years into it
when you're in the grind?
Yeah, when you're in the grind and after 4 years of grinding it out, as you were when you started it. And I can wholeheartedly say, and my wife and family and everyone around me can tell you that I am more bullish about Legion M than I've ever been, and mostly because of the community, you know. And the community is the source of our superpower. We talk about it. We'll talk about it today. It's the business model. It is our business model, and I think the engagement and support that we've had is really like reassuring. It was one of the things that when we started the company, we just weren't sure, you know, how that would, like, if it would resonate with people, and that it is so reassuring. But even on compounding on that is how the industry is reacting to it. And you know, one of our concerns when we started was, okay, this is a great idea, and fans and, you know, our community will be amazing, but how will the industry receive it? And will they be threatened by it? Will they be supportive? And, you know, what we've seen, I mean, there are some people that are threatened by it, and that's always good, but by and large, people are very receptive. And so I think you know, what empowers us and what reassures us is that we have this engagement and we have this receptivity and we have just an unbelievable opportunity. So I want to raise my glass to the opportunity in front of us and thank everyone for all their help and support. Cheers. Cheers. We're going to be drunk before we should make a drinking game. All right, now I am going to share screen unless Taylor says otherwise.
Please share your screen.
By the way, for those of you out there watching, there are people on startmeeting.com or on the Start Meeting, the app, or on the website. And at the end of this, there's going to be an opportunity for you to either type questions in the chat or to even potentially come on screen if you'd like to ask a question in person. If you're watching on Facebook right now, because we're also simulcasting this to Facebook, you can type questions in the comments if you like, and we've got people that are going to be moderating there that are going to forward them to us. I would also tell you, the quality is way better on Start Meeting. Yeah. So there's a link that you can go to that will get you into the software either as an app on your phone or on your PC. The quality is way better. For some reason, the way that it works with Facebook when you simulcast, it's kind of
being
jerky.
Transcoded to me.
Exactly. So
you're being here live.
Yeah. Nothing like
right.
being
And for those
live.
of you here live,
Yeah.
yes.
There's no quality when you're here live. I apologize for that. But you do get to drink Dom Perignon. There's something to be said for that.
You've got 50 viewers right now. Live.
Right,
awesome.
Okay, good. Well, all right. So why don't we start in? You know, our legal team always requires us to have this copy here that talks about the risk, and this is an SEC requirement. Again, we're an equity crowdfunding company, so we take all those.
And it's really just letting people know, especially the people here are live, that we can't filter this out. That we're excitable, and but whenever we say anything about like what's going to happen in the future, right? Yeah. This is what we think is going to happen. This is what what we're projecting, what we're trying or aspiring for.
Yeah.
Not like a guarantee of like, okay, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, we have another slide where we kind of take that slide and put it in our own words.
Yes.
In English, basically. The agenda that we want to cover today, we've done the toast to all of you. We're going to go through startup investing, just talking about startup investing. We're going to talk, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Jim Collins and his book, Good to Great.
Any Jim Collins fans in
Flywheel
the house?
concept.
Anybody? A couple? Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We have some data slides that we're going to do. We're also going to talk about and go deep on how we plan to make money and like how that works. We've got some opportunity to talk about merch. So Mandy's going to come on, our new head of merchandise. And we're going to talk about company performance and our phased approach. And then we have some Valor Awards, some very worthy Valor Award recipients that we'll be recognizing today. And then we've got Q&A. So hopefully we have plenty of time. This is that same legal slide in our words. You know, one of the things that we want to remind everybody is that Legion M is a startup. You know, we are really excited about it, and you know, we like to talk enthusiastically about it just because we believe in it. But it should be we should all remind ourselves that it's a startup. We're still in the early phases. We're not profitable. There's a lot of opportunity, or there's a lot of time ahead of us before we reach a point where we're not threatened by the odds that most startups face. And so, we just want to remind we're making tremendous progress, but, we're still a startup, and, we have that video, watch before investing, and so if anyone wants to watch it, again, we can share it. All right, well, so one of the biggest questions that we get nowadays is like, okay, this is great. We're doing Emperor's Blades. We're doing Mandy. We've done this. What does that mean to you as an investor? And this is also a question that we get asked a lot on Facebook, like, okay, what's the ROI? And so we know from all the impulses that we do and the conversations that we have that for a lot of people, this is literally their very first investment. Like, they've never invested in anything. We also know that for a lot of people, this is their very first time investing in startups, right? So there's a lot of people that maybe do have experience investing in the stock market or mutual funds or watching CNBC and that sort of stuff, but they're not familiar with startup investing, which was never even possible for most of us until the Jobs Act passed 4 years ago. This company was founded on this disruptive change of the Jobs Act that took this section of the economy, which is investing in startups, that used to only be available to venture capitalists and angel investors and kind of, accredited investors, and open it up to the masses. So this is basically a very introductory primary to what startup investing is, and then we're going to go for what that means as far as Legion M. Yep. So first and foremost, just to make sure that it's clear in everybody's minds, when you invest in Legion M, you're buying equity in the company. You are literally buying stock. Every one of you owns a piece of the company. And so if you think of the company as this little ball, your shares, what you own, is your percentage of it, and the rest of the red is what everybody else owns. Our goal is to turn that little ball into a massive planet that absorbs galaxies and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, and so as we do that, as the company grows, the value of your percentage grows. But there's a wrinkle to that, which is that to the extent that we need to raise money and get more investors to invest in the company, we issue more shares to more people. So what happens is the percentage ownership that you own gets slowly smaller and smaller and smaller. But hopefully, when things are going well and the company is successful, the company is growing so much faster that you end up with a smaller piece of a much larger pie, and your value of what you own of the company is growing. And so, so if we look at where we are today, we're in the middle of round 6, which we started right after round 5. Our share price is $10.65. That's what one share is worth. And if you took every share in the company and you added it all up, the total value of the company is $30.2 million. That's what's called the valuation or the market cap of a company. So again, if you're familiar with investing in the stock market, market cap is a very big term. Disney has a market cap, and so on. So you want to go to the next one? We're gaining on them.
Yeah.
We're coming for you, Disney.
So this is what we've done over the past, we founded the company in May of 2016 when March was when we founded it. Our first round was in May, the day that the Jobs Act law went into effect. And so this is what the valuation of the company has done during that time.
Oops, sorry.
And this is what the share price has done. So for you as an investor, the share price, that's your scorecard as far as like, okay, how have my shares done? So if you bought in at $7 a share, now we're selling, the shares that we're selling today are $10.65 for the exact same share.
Yeah, and that's an important thing to point out, that like the shares are the same. They're always the same. Yeah.
Yes, and even more than that, as a private company, like for a public company, and you think of like Disney and Sony, for a public company, all of the shares are effectively the same, right? For private companies like Legion M, there's usually different classes of stock, where maybe the co-owners or the big investors or something like that will have preferences, financial preferences in certain cases. Up until now, we've been able to completely avoid that. So a share that you own has the exact same financial terms as a share that I own and a share that Paul owns. And so we did that intentionally, and it was something that we actually had to fight for, and we have to fight for in a number of cases. And it's because of the fact that we think that we should all be in the same boat, right? And we don't win unless you guys win, and vice versa. So, all right, so the question becomes, we showed what we've done, and so if this is a path of our trajectory, what can happen from here? Like people say, okay, well, bottom line, what are my shares going to be worth? What is my investment value? And the answer is literally nobody knows. There's no way to predict. What we can show is some potential trajectories, like things that companies frequently do. So this is what we're aiming for, right? This is Facebook, this is Google, Uber, skyrocket, the sky's the limit to infinity and beyond. This is linear growth, right? This isn't bad, and it's still upwards, and depending on how quickly go, it can be a hockey stick or it can be whatever. Of course, there's also the possibility that things, slow down, and of course there's, the most likely possibility, statistically, is that it crashes and burns. And again, we're very upfront with people about the fact that most startup companies fail just because of the fact that we don't want people saying, oh my God, this is amazing, I'm going to put $10,000, this is my retirement savings, like it's not that sort of investment. And the people, if you look before the Jobs Act, the people that invested in startups, they recognize this fact that startups are big swings that have massive upside, but they're also extremely high risk. If you put your money in Disney, you can be pretty sure it may go up or down a little bit, but it's not going to go out of business. When you invest in a startup, you're trying to hit a home run, and we'll talk about that in a second, but you also have to acknowledge the fact that it could end up flat. And so if you were doing this professionally as an investor and say, I'm just going to invest in startups and put all of my retirement savings in there, doing things like diversifying across a lot of different startups, learning what are the distinguishing factors between a startup that is successful versus one that fails. And, we've got our own thoughts, and we could have a whole, discussion about that. I think it boils down to team and the size of the opportunity and stuff like that. But anyway, so to keep on going, if we want to talk about, well, actually go back. Will that go back?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so really, when people ask me, like, what is my stock going to be worth, the outcomes are anything from 0 to, if we pick Disney and say, okay, that's the most successful company of all time, right? That's kind of the range, right? So zero is easy for us to kind of put our heads around, but what does Disney look like if we were to aim for that? So, like I said earlier, companies like Disney and Comcast and Sony, these are public companies. These are market cap numbers. This is what it was when I made this slide a couple days ago. It changes day to day based on the share price. You guys can look this up. If these are the giants, of what we could aspire to, $262 billion. And you'll see at the very bottom, there's a little tiny blip that you almost can't see. And so if we zoom in on that section of the chart, just that section right there, That gets us to Legendary and Lionsgate. I don't know, Legendary.
You probably thought that was Legion. That's not, we're not even there yet. We need a microscope to get to where we are.
Legendary sold to Wanda a couple of years ago for $3.5 billion. Lionsgate is a public company. They've been up and down over the past few years, but right now they happen to be at $2.3 billion. And if you see at the very tiny bottom at that, if you zoom in on that, that's where you get to Legion M.
We're on the chart, though.
Yeah, we're on the chart.
We are on the chart, so this all is to scale. But
this is our upside.
But if we go back to this slide right here, and I don't know how you guys are watching at home, right? But for me, it's about 6 inches high, right? Where this chart of where we are. If we drew this chart to scale and put Disney on this chart, it would be a 50-story building for us to get to Disney. So that's the upside for Legion M. Like, this literally is a swing for the fences. This is the venture capitalist that got in on Facebook had a 3,000x return on his investment, and he invested at Legion M when it was about the size of our first round.
Yep.
Now, does that say? I mean, Facebook is probably the most successful company. Like, it's one of the top probably
it's
all time. But
the biggest unicorn.
But it's that is possible. Is it likely? No. But that's what we're shooting for. And every one of those companies I mentioned, Disney, Sony, Facebook, at one point, they were this little dot right here. They went through the $30 million, and at that point, Facebook was a college dropout, with a bunch of buddies in his house. And he had this big idea. And Disney was a guy with some mouse drawings, right? But he had this big idea. And so I feel like that's what we are, is that, we're at that point, we've got this big idea, and then, Paul's going to talk in the next section about why we think that Legion M, fundamentally from a business standpoint, like how you would explain this to a business analyst, why we think that it has that potential.
Yeah, so one of the things, obviously this is exciting to think about, and it's what motivates us. And it's not just blind ambition. This isn't just something like, oh, let's just try it and see what happens. We think very strategically about, if we're going to do this, how do we do it? And I don't know if you guys are familiar with one of my favorite business books is Good to Great. And actually, when we started Moby TV almost 20 years ago, this was required reading for our early staff. And one of the things so Jim Collins, what he had done is he did a intense investigation on what was the difference between good companies and great companies. Companies that massively, exceeded what the potential was. And so he would start with an industry and look at all the companies in that industry, and there'd be a lot of good companies there, but there'd usually be one or two exceptionally great companies. And so he went and he talked to management, and there was a pretty exhaustive research study, and he learned some specific things about it. And there's a bunch of we could have a whole dedicated deep dive on Jim Collins and what that means to startups. And I teach a class on entrepreneurship for Northwestern Kellogg, and this is something that I reference frequently to future entrepreneurs that are looking to start their company. And one of the things that I really like about what he talks about is something called the flywheel. And the flywheel, the way he describes it is, the difference between a company that has linear growth, that is just doing something in a linear way. They've figured out how to make a product and market it and sell it, and they've figured out how to do that profitably, and they just do that over and over until that product doesn't sell anymore, and they introduce a new one, and they build that up again, and they get linear growth on the next product. But the great companies build a flywheel, and what a flywheel is something where you're investing in something that can't help but benefit another component of your business that then comes back around to help another essential part of your business. So this sounds kind of theoretical, and I'll show you some examples. And then I have the example of like how Legion M is, in my opinion, the quintessential flywheel. So what he talks about is you're making steps forward, you're investing in your business, not just creating new products, but you're doing something special that accumulates in visible results. And those results then cause more momentum in your product line that builds your flywheel. And so if you invest in this over time, you know, you may actually delay your breakthrough moment. So one of the things, like if you look at the, you know, the build-up period of time, you're building something. So you may have a period of time where you're lagging behind kind of the other competition in your marketplace, but what you're building is your long-term competitive advantage. And then when you reach that point of critical mass, that's when your breakthrough occurs and you dwarf everybody else in the sector. And so there are some great companies, and these are actual drawings from Amazon and Uber and their kind of flywheel and how they think of flywheel. And Uber in particular, or Amazon in particular, is a really famous one because what they did is they knew, Bezos said, look, the more selection we have in our store, the more people will come to our store. The more people that come to our store, that traffic, will bring us more sellers. And the more sellers we get is going to bring us a better customer experience, which is going to bring us more traffic. And that's going to be a flywheel. And that's going to compound the growth. The bigger, and Amazon is now, I mean, that's why they named it Amazon. It's absolutely massive. And he knew early on that the bigger the selection was, that selection would always drive traffic, and that traffic would always drive down costs. So the other component on this, there are these strategic compounders. So in the case of Amazon, once they had this in place, now because they had so much higher volume than anyone else in the space, they could lower prices and still be competitive. And once they lowered prices, then it accelerated their whole flywheel. And it's no secret how successful Amazon is today. But there were so many years, I remember back, even having a reporter friend that interviewed Jeff Bezos, and he couldn't believe that the company wasn't profitable yet. And Bezos was just building this flywheel so that he could have that breakthrough moment, which he's succeeded with. Uber did the same thing. I mean, they're still not profitable, but they're building a competitive differentiator in that they have more drivers, they have more geographic coverage, and that gets them faster pickups, which creates more demand, which brings in new drivers. So this is their flywheel.
Yeah, it's the Uber case study is a really kind of interesting one because, you look at Legion M, we've raised about $9 million, a little bit over $9 million right now, to invest in what we're trying to build. Uber raised tens of billions of dollars from private investors. Again, it was just like this, but it was, each one of you was a VC that was putting in checks for $500 million here and $1 billion there. Then they had an IPO, which I think generated $55 billion, if memory serves me right. That company has never been profitable, ever. Right? So all they've done is they've accumulated probably now $75 billion, and they've spent probably $40-50 billion of that. Never made a penny in profit.
And by the way, if you're worried, that's not our plan. We don't need that much. We're not doing it.
But the point is that, different businesses require different levels of investment, right? And if you want to go start a laundromat or own an Arby's, you're going to raise a little bit of money, and you got to get profitable quick because it's not going to work. If you're trying to do a moonshot, you've got to be able to invest again smartly. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all right. So our flywheel, the Legion M flywheel, when we think of it, I think it's actually even more compelling than what Amazon and Uber have. And there's a whole write-up on this where you can go in and look at other companies' flywheels, because Jim has kind of put that on his website. But for us, the key component that creates our flywheel is growth of the community. Because the bigger the community gets, the bigger our impact is on projects. And when we have a bigger impact on projects, we can't help but have better odds for success on our investments. And when we can't help but have better odds on success, we can make bigger bets on better projects, and we have access to better projects. And as that flywheel turns, the bigger the community gets, the bigger our impact is, the better odds for success, the bigger and better projects we have access to, that we experience compounded strategic growth there. And there's another key benefit for this that we have already seen. And we'll go through our projects, and like Jeff said, we're still at the very early stages of this, but the indicators are really strong, which is our kind of outlier impact is that the bigger our community gets, the better the terms we're able to negotiate. So we're at a point now where, you know, and we're very selective about the projects we want to get involved in, but there are a lot of people offering us opportunities in great projects where we have almost zero risk because of our advantage. They don't offer any other investor a term like that, but they're willing to offer us because we have this strategic advantage and we're building this flywheel. So as we build, you know, we're not quite like at critical mass yet with our community, but it's getting there. And that's why when we talk, and you know, it may feel like we're repetitive, we're always focused on growth. Even when we make our investments in projects, one of the key characteristics we look for is, will this project help us grow our community? Mm-hmm. Because as we grow our community, just like Amazon wanted to add more sellers and increase the variety and scope of what they had available in their storefront, our growth in community is the key to our success. And the bigger it gets, the better the company becomes. So there are some statistics that I wanted to share that I think are really interesting. And some of these you may have seen. We did show these slides at one of the Comic-Cons. But as we grow, you know, we've always talked about this aiming for 1 million investors. And that's kind of our goal. It's built into our logo, the M with the bar over it. And right now, the average investor puts, you know, between $400 and $500 per investor in, and we like that number. Actually, it feels like an appropriate number for startup investing. If everyone were investing $100,000, we'd be worried about it. But at 500, that's actually more than enough money for us to be successful in what we're doing. And by the way, our flywheel doesn't require 1 million investors to be, you know, self-fulfilling. And when I think of a flywheel, I think of like a perpetual motion machine. Once you've built it and you've invested in it, then, you know, we're going to have movies, and some will be good and some may not be good, but as long as we have enough of them, and as long as our flywheel is operating the way we intend it to, we will be in business for perpetuity, and we'll keep growing. And so in this case, you know, if that number stays at 500 and we get to 1 million investors, we'll have raised $500 million to invest in projects that have 1 million people. I mean, if I showed that to Jim Collins, who I am actually in touch with, and I'm hoping to show him our flywheel at some point, I think he would be really impressed by that. You know, that is a flywheel worth talking about. You know, we're not promising that we're going to be as big as Uber or Facebook or anything like that, but I wouldn't put, like, we have an amazing opportunity, and if we get this flywheel right, it'll be something that people talk about, and it'll be history making. So already, like, I put a little like indicator in here, like, of where we are, you know, from an investor standpoint and from a member standpoint. And this chart, what it talks about is our annual collective video viewing hours, right? And so at 1 million investors, that number is 10.9 billion hours of video. That's how much we're consuming as a community. And our collective media spend, like how much we spend on entertainment, going to the movies, Netflix, Comcast, whatever we spend, that's $6.7 billion just from our community. And over 300 million hours of video across our community. That's what we consume. And we're not saying that all those hours need to be on Legion M content, but if some of them were, it's going to contribute to our flywheel. It's going to make us more successful. And we're over 200 million in spend. There's another component of this that is really interesting, and it's, you know, today, one of the most important things for successful projects is grassroots momentum. You know, it's an important factor in politics. It's an important factor in almost any product or project release. Do you have buzz? And do you have people talking about your project? And especially in Hollywood, one of the things that the industry is really trying to figure out, you know, historically they used to just be able to, and the big studios can still do this, they used to just be able to spend a bunch of money on random advertising, and if they spent enough money, they knew enough people would get out to the theater. That's gotten harder to do. And so one of the things, Kevin Smith is famous for saying this, that, you know, the hardest thing in Hollywood isn't making a movie, it's marketing a movie. And, you know, if you can, and also the most expensive thing in Hollywood isn't always making the movie, it's marketing the movie. If you look at a lot of the big studio projects, you know, they might spend $100 million on the film and then $200 million marketing it. And so if we can change that calculus and lower our costs for marketing to get the kind of grassroots, and I believe, like we've seen this on Mandy and other projects, what we're getting is a more genuine grassroots marketing support than just buying bus shelter ads and, you know, random ads so people are hearing about it. So this slide, what it talks about is our combined social reach. You know, right now we're just behind 60 million people we have access to through our community. And if we were to make a social media post, you know, like a Facebook post or a Twitter post or all of the above, and our community, so what this talks about, and one thing I want to be clear on is, we don't expect everyone in our community to share our post every single time. But what this shows is the sheer potential of it. And so if everyone did, and we had 1 million investors in our community, that post would be seen by 500 million people. And if you were to try to buy that advertising through Facebook and get $500 million, it would cost you close to $20 million. And one of the things they say is that a post that gets shared by a friend that you're looking at, that like came from someone in your social network, is 5 to 10 times more valuable than one that's a sponsored post or came from a studio or something like that. And so if we can get this is part of our flywheel too, is our ability to get involved in a project, lower the marketing costs, and create more authentic grassroots community support for that project. And again, when we have a report card for all of our projects, all the ones that we've done that we're going to go through, and you'll see we've had success doing that. The last slide on this is when we look at the total kind of potential on like what we could do beyond just like lowering the marketing costs. If everyone in our community were to either watch that program, if it's a television series, or go out to the movie and go, I think we have with 2 friends. So the average moviegoer goes with, I think, 1.6 people or something like that. So, you know, our community, because we're owners, like what we've seen is that we tend to go with even more people, right? Because we're excited and we're wanting to share the project that we've been involved in, and that we're emotionally and financially invested in them. So at 1 million investors, if we're driving box office and we're all going out to the theater and we're bringing 2 friends, that's $121 million in box office just from our community. So you can see how powerful this flywheel gets. That's for every movie. And again, we don't expect everybody will do that, right? So that's the potential. If we maximized and exhausted every bit of potential from Legion M. But the number, you know, even if it's a fraction of that, is still really, really powerful to be successful. And that's not including people that hear about it through our, you know, the social media and other outlets. And if we were to get everyone to tune in for the first episode of a new season, that's 13 million. That's almost as big as the Game of Thrones. So that's just from our community. Just our community getting two friends. We could create something. We have the potential to create something that was as seminal as the new Game of Thrones episode of the last season. That's how big that was. So that could be one of the biggest, you know, introductions of the year. So anyway, this is why the flywheel is so important to us, and why, you know, we live and breathe it, and why like a key element toward our kind of business model and how we plan to grow Legion M.
Yeah. And one thing, just to build on what he's saying, because he mentioned it, but it bears repeating. Like, you know, when he's talking about, like, what if everybody went to go see the movie and, you know, that sort of impact. Like, A, we don't expect everybody to go see every movie. We want you to go see the movies that you want to see. And if it's not a movie you don't want to see, that's fine, you know. But if you got a friend that might be interested, you know, it's those little tiny differences, you know. The fact that you're even aware that Mandy came out. Like, who here would have been aware that Mandy came out had it not been for Legion M, right? So whether you love that movie, whether you hate it, whether you go out and talk to people about it, or whether you don't, the fact that you're aware of it is a win, because some portion of you did end up going out and talking to people about it because maybe it was something that you were into. And I think it's really remarkable. If you look at over the past, you know, 2 years, we've been involved with 2 projects, Mandy and Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, that have both viewed from within the industry as kind of breakout successes that are both based on grassroots support, right? There weren't bus billboards for Kevin and, you know, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. And in both cases, like, we're not trying to take credit for it. I mean, Kevin Smith is amazing, and you know, it was exactly the right time. We feel fortunate to be involved with it. Same thing with Mandy. Like, that was a movie that became a cultural touchstone, and it had the right time, and Panos did an amazing job, and we were fortunate to be involved with it. But in both of those cases, like, from a marketing strategy, it was the complete anti, like, Hollywood, like, we're going to spend $100 million and, you know, get a Super Bowl ad. Like, both of them were driven from the ground up by grassroots support, and those are both ones that we were intimately and heavily involved with. And so, you know, it's all those little things contributing that gets that flywheel spinning, and then the bigger we get, just the more momentum we get, and the bigger, and at some point it becomes unstoppable.
And the people involved in those projects, I mean, they noticed, you know, like, especially on Mandy, and even, you know, we talked to Saban this week, and on Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, and, you know, it's visible. The impact that we're having is visible to everyone involved. I mean,
and
Kevin's
in the
been
industry.
Appreciative, and
It's funny. I mean, we talk about, so when we started, so 2.5 years ago, you know, or 3 years ago, when we had this meeting, and, you know, the Legion was 3,500 people. We're jumping up and down like, we got 3,500 people. Let's raise a toast to, you know, and all that sort of stuff. And we were very fortunate, I think, at that time, to have a relationship with Neon that allowed us to get involved with Colossal, right? Because at that time, it's not like we could knock, hey, Avengers, hey, we're here, we're, you know, you're saved. And, you know, so when you start off, you're always, like, scraping by and just trying to, like, get your foot in the door. And now, I mean, we haven't arrived yet. You know, we're still on an upswing. But, you know, we're talking with some of the biggest names in the industry, and some of them are calling us.
They're calling us,
because of the fact they're like, you know, I don't know if we want to, if we can drop any names, but, you know, we've had meetings with, you know, like Bad Robot and Agbo, which is the Russo Brothers company, and I mean, we're engaging with people at some of the highest levels, and we don't have any projects with any of those people yet. But the fact that, you know, that we're talking is,
you know, and they want to look at our projects. And, you know, when you see, we'll talk a lot later about just our phased approach, like how to, like, you know, why did we get involved in Colossal, and why are we doing something like Emperor's Blades, you know, and as we kind of grow our sort of, you know, community of people that understand what we're all about, we're opening doors. And when we're opening doors, that's allowing us to kind of take on more of the sort of value in the value chain for creating projects.
Cool.
All right, should we do this?
Yeah, so just to shift gears here. So we've kind of been going kind of from the most general. So this is Startup 101 to this is what we think is kind of the fundamental magic behind Legion M. We want to get a little bit more specific about Legion M, what we've done, and how we plan to make money. So this chart is a really kind of rough simplification of the stages of the development that a project goes through. And so I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I don't need to read it. You know, the first part is development. That's where you're starting with an idea, or maybe there's a book that you want to adapt. And really the goal of that is to create whatever materials you can, whether it's a script or a package. So a package means, okay, we've got a script, and we've got this director signed up to direct it, and we've got these 2 actors that are agreeing to star in it. So that's a package. you know, it could mean acquiring rights to something and getting everything bundled up into a nice package so that you can, you know, like a studio will buy it if you're talking about a studio film, or you can sell it to a network so that they're going to put it on a show, or Netflix going to buy it. So that's kind of the development stage. A lot of that is, you know, conceptual, creative, you know, it's not usually a lot of money that's being plunked down. It's, you know, getting the right people in the room and figuring out how to turn this into something. Once you get through that, and if you're lucky enough to get a sale or find somebody to finance it, you get into the production phase, and that's where you're casting and scouting locations and hiring camera people and filming. And this is extremely cash intensive generally. Like, this is where, you know, when they're on set, you know, you've got a 20-day shoot and you're burning $500,000 a day, right? So if something happens and somebody gets sick or something breaks or the power goes out, you are literally, there's like a guy there with a cash register going, okay, we just lost 10,000, okay, we just lost 20,000, you know, and it's, so, but that is kind of the whole production part of it, where you actually create the content, whatever it is. At that point, you get to, you know, depending on the model, you know, because TV is very different than film, and then there's things like virtual reality and gaming, you know, which are kind of innovative, newer spaces. But, you know, at that point, you're like, okay, we've got a movie, you know, and now it's about distribution. And so, you know, if you're working with a studio, you've already got that lined up because that's part of the deal. If you're in the independent film world, you're like, okay, let's take it to Sundance and see if somebody will buy it, right? But that's where you get into all the stuff that, like Paul was talking about, print and advertising. That's the money that is spent on marketing the film to get it out there. You got to go out and book theaters. Like, this is something that a lot of people don't recognize, is that when you make your movie, it's not like you just like, okay, I'm going to release it on Thursday and it's going to go everywhere. You have to go out to every single theater or theater chain in America and convince them, this is why you need to put my movie in your theater.
It's actually a surprisingly manual process.
Yes.
Using phones. People calling people.
It's extremely
intensive, especially in the independent
difficult, because it's always changing. And we had a perfect case study with Bad Samaritan 2 years ago, and suddenly, you know, we picked a release date. I mean, the amount of thinking that goes into, like, what is the proper release date for this movie, right? Because, okay, well, what else is releasing that weekend? If there's a movie that's similar, like a much bigger budget, like, you don't want to go up against, like, you know, Star Wars, you know, especially if you're like a sci-fi opera. You know, and, you know, what is the time of year? Are kids in school? You know, weather, you know, like, oh my God, there's a blizzard that took out the Northeast this weekend. You know, your theater numbers are so there's all these contributing factors, and you get it all lined up, and there's all this analysis and hand-wringing that goes into it. With Bad Samaritan, we pick a date, and like a month later, it's like, Avengers moved their date. It's this movie called Infinity War, and it's going to be coming out the week before our movie. Do you think that's going to impact us?
There's a lot of gamesmanship too, I would say. That, like, sometimes the major studios know this, and so they often will pick a date and then move a date, you know, to, like, do a pump fake,
mess with their competitors,
and get everyone to, like, put their stuff somewhere else, and then it's crazy.
It's wild, and so in the distribution phase, that's when all that stuff is happening. Public relations, that's like, how do you get your stars to be on Kimmel, you know, and Good Morning America, and how do you get newspapers around the country to review your film? Like, that's literally something that, as the distributor of the film, you have people whose job it is to call every single, hey, you know, we got this movie, like, I really think you should review it. Can we send you a screener? Can you come out? Like, that stuff doesn't just happen. Like, there's people that make all that happen. And then finally, you get to, you know, hopefully you get to the release. And that's where you're talking about festivals, and you're talking about, you know, there's the theatrical window, you know, if it's a theatrical release where it appears. And then when does it hit video on demand? And when does it come out on DVD? And when does it come out on streaming? And all the other sort of ancillary, thank you, revenue streams that go with it. And this is where you see that in this day and age, you know, the box office has changed, right? The way that we go to the movies has changed. When I was a kid, you went to a movie, like, that was the only way to see a movie. You know, today, why go to a movie when you can just watch it at home? And so Anyway, so that's where, you know, you see the rise of like Day and Date, you know, like not Bad Samaritan, Mandy and Memory, The Origin of Alien, where it comes out on demand the exact same time that it comes out in theater. And there's a whole strategy, it's a marketing strategy designed to minimize the amount of money that you, or optimize, I should say, the amount of money that you're spending on marketing, right? Because if you want to open theatrically nationwide, and like I said, you're trying to convince these theaters to take your movie, part of that is I'm willing to commit to a $5 million marketing spend in your area, right? And if you've got to do that in every area for every like it adds up, and that's why you end up having to spend $200 million, you know, marketing a film. Anyway, so this is a really long-winded way of just kind of explaining, like, this is kind of the cycle, and this is the way, like a simplified way to kind of look at it. This curve up here on the top represents kind of the number of projects that are in each phase, right? So in the idea phase, it's infinite. Every one of us has an idea for a movie or a film or something.
And those are inexpensive to have.
Yeah.
Because you're not spending the money on production.
Yeah, but as you go through the development, right, the number of ideas is this, the number of people that write a script is this, the number of those scripts that then get enough, you know, that people are actually willing to show to somebody and they get feedback on them and develop into something pretty good.
Or people are actually willing to read.
Gets to be this small, and then, you know, by the time, you know, what actually ends up getting made is really, really small. So when we talk about Legion M projects that are in the development phase, like, you know, Emperor's Blades or Evermore or Pitch Elevator and that sort of stuff, these are all things that are in the development stage. They're relatively inexpensive generally for us because we're not writing big checks to make them happen. But, you know, the odds of success are long, but it's kind of like with a startup. It's risk versus reward, right? If that script becomes Game of Thrones, right, then suddenly you've got something that can become invaluable. And because it's your idea and your script, and you were in at the very beginning, or, you know, we helped produce it at the very beginning, you get, you know, you're in the driver's seat.
Well, and it's important to point out that, like, we always plan to have a whole bunch of projects there. Like, we'll follow this curve. We don't expect all of them to go to release, you know, but the more we have there and the more prepared we are for pitching them and getting them ready, and the more access doors that we have to take them through, like Agbo and Bad Robot and these places, the more likely we can take some of those very many projects and end up with, you know, a select few of them that make their way into production.
Yeah. So this slide is where we have put down, like, it's not all of our projects, especially on the development side, because there's a number of development projects that we haven't announced or that aren't big enough, you know, kind of to put on a slide like this. I think all the other ones, you know, have been announced. But anyway, you know, this just gives you an idea. There's a wonderful, in our SEC filings, if anybody goes to read our SEC filings, and there's also a blog post on our website that says how we plan to make money. And it literally will go through almost all of these. There's a couple new ones that are new to this, that, you know, like Arch Enemy, for example. That's not in our SEC filing because that's a brand new project. But, you know, we've got development projects that we're involved at the script stage. We've got, you know, Icons Face to Face. That was like an idea that we had that we actually took through the kind of the early production phase by filming something with Stan Lee and Kevin Smith. Emperor's Blades, those are books that we licensed. You know, we acquired the rights to turn that into a TV show. And like I said, we've got a half a dozen and some really cool projects that we're hoping to be announced. You know, once we can kind of get them far enough along.
And one quick thing to point out about development. So, like, when we look at our portfolio of projects and things that we're invested in, some of them are actual cash investments where we're making a production loan or making a P&A investment, or in other cases, like in development, a lot of that we are making a financial investment into it, but it's not usually a cash investment. It's our time. It's our resources. We're allocating, time and resources from our team, which is money, right? And so we're earning our share in those projects by, you know, working on them.
Yeah. So, you know, we've done equity investments. That's kind of, so once we kind of get out of development stage, and so you've got a project that's actually in production, we've made equity investments in Field Guide to Evil, Mandy, Jay and Silent Bob, and Arch Enemy. There's a whole category of like production loans, like the actual financing and how all this stuff works. Like, I could not put this on a single diagram. We could spend a day talking about, because there's almost infinite ways that you can structure these loans. It's literally, it's one of the most complicated business landscapes that you could potentially encounter when you look at like the waterfall for a film, because there's so many people that are involved in so many different things, and all of the terms, like it's not just like everybody invests and, you know, we're all equal kind of like we are at Legion M. It's kind of like, okay,
everybody
here's what's going to happen. You're going to invest and you get paid out first unless this, and this happens, and then the next stage, whatever's left over is going to be split amongst you four unless this happens, in which case that guy gets paid. Like, it's incredible how complicated that is.
That's why it's nice to have Terry Lindbergh.
Yeah.
Having a lawyer on staff,
and
some of these things, I think companies spend as much money on their
oh
legal
my God,
fees
easily
as they invested in.
Well, plus having people like Tim League and Dean Devlin and people that can help us navigate this and know, like, okay, no, that's a bad deal, right? You don't want to do that because it's incredibly complicated. So on the production side, you know, we've done a lot there. So if you look at, like I said, that curve, which you can very faintly see, that's kind of represents the number of projects gets through. Kind of the inverse of that tends to be risk versus reward, right? Meaning that when you invest in development, the odds of that project ever getting to the end of it are very low. But if it gets there,
You're gonna hit me in the face one of these.
oh, sorry about that. But if you are successful, the reward can be pretty high. When you invest in production, like equity investment, it's still pretty high risk, but at least now you know that there's a movie that's going to be made. You don't know if it's going to succeed or not financially, but, you know, so it's more capital intensive, more risk, you know, but still, you know, a substantial reward. When you get into the next level, into distribution, depending again how it's structured, some of them are even lower risk. A lot of P&A investments are generally very low risk. In general, you know, again, the deal terms can be widely variable. Distribution with Memory of the Origins of Alien, that one was a really seminal project for us because we literally bought the rights to the film. We own the rights to this film for the next 20 years, and it's up to us to, you know, make the most of it theatrically and to sell as many DVDs and sell it on VOD and all that sort of stuff. And then we had, you know, the marketing partnership with Tolkien, which was a great way for us to dip a toe with Fox Searchlight, you know, a division of Disney, I think one of the best and most innovative studios, Fox Searchlight, out there right now for what they're doing. And we got a chance to work with them on Tolkien, and we didn't actually have to make an investment. You know, they wanted us to get involved with us, and we'll talk about that in the report card later. And then finally, on the end of it, you know, this is, you know, merchandising is becoming a huge piece of our business. Live events, there's not really a good, you know, that's almost kind of like a separate chart, but the point of all this is like I said, if you want the details, I encourage you to go read that blog post, which you can find in the SEC filings or on our page. But as a strategy, we are constantly trying to find projects, you know, that are going to allow us to achieve a set number of things. And as you can see, we're doing a lot of different things, getting involved in a lot of different places in the value chain. A lot of it is trying to prove, like, we think that the fly and wheel model works for distribution and for equity, you know, but you know, you don't know until you kind of find out. So, and that leads perfectly probably to our next slide.
All right, so how are we doing so far? You know, and we put some of this in, we do M-Pulse, and we ask you, you know, it's important for us to know that, like, the projects we're investing in are resonating with our community, and that's why we do M-Pulse and Film Scout, and we're always trying to, you know, do a good job on picking those projects. But we also want to talk a little bit about, like, did those projects, how did they do for us? You know, and, you know, what was the ROI that we had on them? And, you know, we've mentioned this before, but we don't share specific, like, information around, we invested exactly this much money and we got that exactly. We can't do that because of confidentiality terms with the projects and the producers, and I also think it would create a barrier for people to work with us if they knew every time we made an investment everything was publicized about, you know, their performance and success. And so But what we do, but we don't want to just leave it there and just wave our hands and not, talk about these things. And so we put together this report card where we want to give you kind of a gauge for, how big was our investment in each one of these projects? How much time did we spend on them? Because we do keep track of all this. How successful was that project in our number one goal, which is growing the Legion, which is building our flywheel? What is our expected ROI, or what was the ROI? Did we make our money? Did we make money, or did we lose money? And one thing that we'll say is projects don't always make money. I mean, Hollywood is a hit-driven business, so you might have 10 projects out there, 3 to 5 of them might all lose money, and 2 of them will be absolutely massively successful, and the other 3 will, generate a little bit of income. The goal is to have enough of a diversified portfolio that, overall, you're making money on your investments.
Unless you're Disney.
Unless you're Disney.
In which case, everything.
Pretty much everything.
Yeah, and
because they have a flywheel.
Yeah,
they built their flywheel.
Flywheels on
so we talk about the experience. We'll go through each one of these. We also have another characteristic that we evaluate on, which is, strategic ROI. In some cases, we might be getting more out of being involved in that project than just the upside of the investment, particularly in the early days where frankly, our investments are pretty small. We're not investing millions of dollars. So our return on that investment is also going to be somewhat small. In a lot of cases, the value that we get out of being the exclusive merch supplier is more valuable than, the return on investment. We always ask ourselves at the end, would we do that project again, and can we learn from it? And then we look at the Rotten Tomato scores. We also look at the Impulse scores to see what you guys think of it. And then we usually have kind of some specific things about those projects that got us particularly excited. So when we look at Colossalers, our first project, it's also probably to date one of our smallest investments. We didn't have tons of money to invest back then. We didn't have tons of people on the team either, so we couldn't invest. We did invest a lot of our time, but proportionately. And it did help us grow the Legion. It was an important project for us to kind of establish what were the types of projects we want to be known for. And I think it also clarified things for our community, which I think galvanized and helped us kind of grow, because it showed that we weren't talking about creating fan films or small, ultra small budget things that you'd only watch on YouTube. We're talking about movies with Anne Hathaway and Jason Sudeikis and Nacho Vigalondo as the director that's going to be out in theaters, and it's going to be on, Hulu and other places. And so that was kind of setting the bar for what do we want to be known for? When we look at the expected financial ROI, we'll just be straight. We're not going to probably make all of our money back on that project. I mean, it's mostly played out. There's still, probably some upside, and we have the merch rights. But that project was, I would call it a lost leader. We didn't make tons of money. It was critically well received, but theatrically it did just okay. And it's probably got a long life ahead of it, but the strategic ROI for being involved in that project massively outweighs. So these indicators on expected financial ROI, that's less than our investment, is the less than side, and on projects where we expect that we will make money, we have the greater than, and we can have multiple greater than. Will we do it again? Absolutely. I think that project was really important for us. And again, the investment we made was not so substantial that, we can live with it. We can live with the fact that, our expected financial ROI isn't as great, because our strategic ROI and all the other benefits that we got out of getting involved. And it also, it had a very high critical score. It was, one of the things that we want Legion M to be known for is doing really original kind of breakthrough thinking. We want to be we don't want to just be kind of doing the same old. We want to kind of, and that movie had a very, like, wildly original, and it was critically acclaimed for being a wildly original project.
I love our slate of films, and I love seeing feedback, like, you know, when we do our Facebook ads, and, you know, we get notes when people invest, and, like, a lot of people are like, you know, I just love, you know, kind of the slate of films that you've got. Just a quick time.
Yeah, we should go quickly. Maybe we don't go through all of them. I mean, if there are questions, so, you know, I would say in general, you know, one of the things that, if you look at trends on this report card, our investments are getting bigger, and our success with those investments is getting bigger. And that's partly because our flywheel is better than it was when we started it. And we didn't need to give up, like, you know, on the terms. We can actually negotiate better terms and get in a better position to make money. So we're, you know, if you look at, like, Mandy, Tolkien, you know, Memory, and Reboot, you know, all of those, you know, on the financial ROI, those are all much better positioned. And they're also all helping us grow our Legion community massively. I mean, Reboot was, you know, by far the biggest project we had, you know, working with Kevin, and that was really helpful. We invested a lot of time in it, but it was, you know, it was really worthwhile. Are there any questions on this report card? All right, should we keep going? Yeah, and we can come back to it, and we can share this too. Oh, one of the things that we wanted to share, you know, for us, it's important that, like, our projects, that you guys like them, that they do well in the marketplace, and that they're critically well received. But we want to be known for being a good partner to work with, so that the best directors and the best producers and the best creators want to come back to Legion M. And so this is a quote that we got from Alexander O'Philippe, the director of Memory, The Origins of Alien, and you know, I'm not going to read it here, but, you know, if we leave it up long enough, you can check it out. He's very, very happy with his, you know, and we believe there's an opportunity to keep working with Alexander. And we have more quotes here, and we have some more coming. I know Panos is writing one. We have, I would say our track record is very high. Like, there's no one out there that we've worked with that would say, oh, I'm never working with you guys again. And well, hopefully that doesn't ever happen, but you know, I would say, like, everyone we've worked with is, like, you know, interested in working with us.
It's just something that's really important to us as a company. And so Paul and I talk a lot about the experiences that we had. This is our third startup together. Our first startup company, Moby TV, you know, started with 3 co-founders and grew to have, you know, 300-400 employees, offices around the world. You know, so we've seen a lot of different things. And one of the things that you learn really quick is that, you know, it's a small world, it's a small industry, and there are plenty of people out there that are talented that you don't want to work with, and you work with them once and then they're gone forever. And, you know, like, you're just not going to do it. And so, especially, you know, for us, and especially on the creator side, I mean, Steven Spielberg can work with whoever he wants. Like, Stan Lee could work with whoever he wanted to, but you know, we were able to get him, you know, to work with us. And it's always investing in the relationships and making sure that you're doing right by people, whether it's your investors or your partners.
Yeah, I would say our reputation is important to us, and reputation really matters in Hollywood, you know, because, like Jeff said, the best talent have options, and you want to be the option that they want to go to. All right, should we talk about, you want to?
Yeah, so this is, I mean, just real brief. So it's January 11th? January 11th. So we have not even closed our books for January yet, from an accounting standpoint. We do every year, in case you guys aren't familiar, every April 30th, I think, is the deadline. We do an annual report, which gets filed publicly with the SEC, and where there is, I don't know, usually 100, 200 pages worth of stuff if you want to go through it. All of our financials are in there, a lot of detailed questions. There's information about our business plan. There's information about our equity structure. It's really, like, it's extremely thorough. It's a total... It's hard, but it's kind of like a colonoscopy. Like, it's good. Like, I feel good when we get our audit done, because we know that there's somebody who has checked everything, and, you know, it's all good. Sorry.
The deep subject.
Anyway, but
Legion M's colonoscopy, an annual event. We're going to televise.
We're going to live stream it.
Yeah, we're going to stream it this year.
But we're healthy.
Yeah, we got a good checkup.
Anyway, so what we did was we went through and did kind of a back of the envelope calculation just to get a sense, because we know, I mean, the first half of 2019 we've got non-audited financial statements. The second half of it, we've got kind of incomplete results. And part of the reason why this stuff is so tricky, like you'll notice there's no numbers on these charts because we really just want to kind of indicate the trends, is there's a lot of complexity that goes into GAAP accounting, which is the accounting that you have to do for an SEC registered company. And so a really simple example is we did Girl with No Name back in April of this year. So it's in the first half of 2019. And when we did Girl with No Name, we sold $135,000 worth of pre-sales of that comic book and all the packages, right? That's a public number that was on Kickstarter. But if you go back and read our first half financial statements that we filed with the SEC, that is not included in our revenue numbers, right? Those items were sold in April. We collected the money in April, but they were not delivered until September, October, because we had to go through the whole printing process and do them. So because of the fact that they were not delivered until until the second half of the year, we are not allowed to recognize that as revenue. So if we were doing this 11 days after the end of that first half, we would have been like, oh yeah, we sold this and we had $135,000, but there's just so much complexity, and that's just on the revenue side. On the expense side and the capitalization and how you account for all these projects, like there's a lot to it. So just take this as kind of generally informational, but we had a great year in 2019. Our revenue is really starting to break out, and I think what's most interesting about this, like this chart is actually a little bit misleading, because if you see 2016 was pretty low, 2017 kind of stepped up, 2018 was down, and then it's a big up. What really happened was in 2017, that revenue there came from almost entirely from one event, which was the Stanley handprint ceremony. And we had a couple $100,000 worth of ticket sales and sponsorship revenue around that one event, which was a once-in-a-lifetime, like it's not like we're going to do that every year or that sort of thing. And so if you kind of take that one event out of it and look at, what we're making, from our endeavors on the film business and in the merchandise side and all that sort of stuff, you would actually have something that looks a lot more like a parabola. It would look a lot more like our shareholder growth sort of curve. So, so that's
the thing that I would add is like a lot of this seems to be sort of sustaining revenue. That there's stuff that we have kind of a pipeline for.
Yes.
And we can expect, we're not in a position to make a forecast for 2020, and we probably wouldn't, just because when you're in a startup, it's too hard. Like your ability to predict that is very challenging, and to get it right, your odds of getting it exactly right, and if you don't get it right, then you open yourself up for shareholder suits. And so we just don't want to be in that position. We're too young a company, but we do want to be able to share like what the performance looks like and how things are going. And we've got, do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so on the expenses side, so these are kind of three major categories. Thank you very much. Of expenses that we have: marketing, overhead, and staff. So just to be clear, staff includes salaries, it includes our contractors and temporary workers, it includes benefits, it includes stock-based, non-cash compensation, right? So, people that are accruing stock options, whether advisors and all that sort of stuff. Overhead is just kind of like a lot of the general stuff, insurance and legal and all that sort of stuff. And then marketing is basically what we would consider kind of a discretionary sort of spending, right? So if you think about it, when you build a company, you hire your staff, you've got to deal with like your rent and your insurance and your this and your that and whatever you've got to deal with like to run your company. And that stuff is very hard to change, right? Because, you can't just like fire somebody one week and then hire them back the next, whatever. Marketing expenditures for us, we are very disciplined and data-driven when it comes to marketing. So, like, for example, when we're marketing memory DVDs, that's one of the things that we sell right now on Facebook, right? We know exactly how much it costs us for every person that buys a memory DVD from our Facebook ads, and we know exactly how much we make from each one of those DVDs that we sell. So it's pretty simple math as far as figuring out like, okay, yes, it makes sense to spend money marketing this. And if it gets to the point where it costs too much to acquire people, then you don't, or you find a different way to market, or something like that. And so,
by the way, that one's been very successful.
Yeah, that one's actually been hugely successful. And it's a great thing because we got the pin. I've noticed there's a couple of them out here in the crowd of people who are wearing them. But anyway, so I think the takeaway from the expenses side is the fact that if you look at our staff and our overhead, those costs have remained very stable. And that's something that's very important to us because having lived through the dot-com boom and bust of the 90s and the early 2000s, we started Moby TV in 1999. It was literally like
right at the end
6 months before like the date that people would pinpoint of the dot-com crash. And so, we've seen kind of both sides of it. And I can tell you, the most important thing for a startup, the number one thing that you have to manage is your burn. How much you're spending money, right, versus how much money you've got in the bank. Because the problem is, if you spend too fast, it's game over, right? When the company runs out of money, you're pretty much done. And it doesn't matter how great the prospects are. But there's also the flip side, which is if you don't spend money fast enough, you're like an airplane that never takes off and gets off the ground, right? And we've got a big, ambitious, like we're not starting in Arby's, right? We're aiming for 1 million investors and changing the world and revolutionizing Hollywood. And so in order to do that, you got to be willing to step on the gas. You got to be willing to make some risks and all that sort of stuff. But you've got to do it responsibly, and you've got to do it in a way, just like everything that we do, where you're experimenting, you're learning quickly and reacting to it. And if it's not working, you got to shut it down. So, that's why we're making all these little bets in all these little projects, as opposed to saying, yeah, we like this movie, we're going to bet it all on black, right? Anyway, so that's kind of, I think, all that's really worth talking about this. Maybe when the actual financial report is done, it might be kind of interesting to do one of these where we could kind of go through it if people are interested.
The other thing that I would point out that, like, if you look at the expenses chart, you can see a pretty strong increase in our marketing spend, and as Jeff mentioned, that's a discretionary spend. In that case, a big part of that is also investing in our growth.
Yeah.
So in our case, you could kind of see it as like an R&D investment. This is investing in our flywheel. So the more investors, we know that in our model, in our calculus, the bigger our community is, the more valuable our overall business will be. And so we're willing to make that marketing investment. But when we reach critical mass on that flywheel, we expect that flywheel will turn on its own. And the bigger that we are, the better projects we'll be involved in. That's going to be recruiting and attracting new investors on its own, and we won't need to spend this money to do it. But we're still in the early stages where, we need to get the word out about Legion M. We have some slides where, I think this number in particular is a number that, like, we keep a careful eye on, and I think it's something that we all collectively as a community have some control over, because the more we're telling our friends, and the more kind of naturally viral it is, the less we have to actually spend on it.
Yeah, that's the perfect segue to
there we go.
This. So I mean, this for us is probably the most important metric. Like, when people talk to us about, like, okay, what is the key thing for Legion M? It's not how much money we made on a particular project. It's not the little details. It's like, how big is our flywheel and how fast is it going? And I don't know that these slides need any explanation. I mean, these are the numbers. These are
the thing that I would point out is you can see a correlation here. we're investing more money, but we're also seeing results in that. So our flywheel, we're growing. Last year was the best year we've ever had since starting the company and growing our community. We doubled the size of our community, and it's easy to say like we've always been doubling pretty much annually. But it gets a lot harder to double. Like doubling 25,000 is a much bigger number than doubling 3,500. And so, but this is a again it's an encouraging sign. It's something that we are committed to maintaining this kind of growth. And 2020, we want to sustain it so that we can keep building that flywheel.
Yep.
So I think the last thing, some of you may have seen this slide. We've used it. We're probably the method to our madness. Like, why are we doing what we're doing today? What is the sort of long-term goal of the company? And we've really kind of broken it down into 4 distinct phases. And we're really of phase 2 right now. So phase 1 was just getting the concept out there and getting a couple projects into our portfolio. We have a really kind of coherent and like powerful message when we're marketing. So when we first started, it was we didn't have that. So we were just counting, and a lot of the early investors were willing to take a chance on it. But as we try to keep growing, people are going to want to see, like, okay, what's their track record? Is it a scam? Did they just kind of run off with their investors' money? Did they actually ever get any projects out into, are people having fun with it? And all those things, all that stuff, I think, all those things really matter and makes it easier for us to attract and grow our community. So we're in this phase right now called growth, and this is where we want to grow. This is like investing in our flywheel and building it and getting it turning really fast. The next phase, our expectation, and again, it's a startup, so a lot can change. Our expectation is that we will do a lot more production of our own projects in that next phase. And in the 4th phase, we might be even distributing our own projects. And, the 5th phase is building theme parks and all that stuff. But, I think one of the things that, if you were to map this to the flywheel, this is making bigger bets, owning more of our upside because we're responsible. Like, one of the things that I think is interesting is right now, we make a tiny little bet on a movie like Mandy. We lean in on it, have a big impact on that project's overall business model, and we benefit that much from it. All the other investors got that benefit from our impact on the project. But as we grow and we do, we make a bigger impact or we make a bigger investment, then we're kind of recouping the value that we're adding more completely. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I think we are at Merch Matters. So
Taylor, can we bring Mandy on?
You got it. Get Mandy in here.
And should I keep sharing my screen, or do we want to turn off share screening for a moment so Mandy can introduce herself, and then I'll turn it back on?
Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you turn it off, and then you can turn it back on if there's any major relevant info you want to put up on the screen.
Well, I'm going to put it back up because she's got slides that she's going to be referring to.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Mandy, you should be unmuted now.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, guys. Can you hear and see me?
Yeah, we can see you. And
okay, hi, everybody. So nice to see everybody. Thank you, guys, for doing that incredible presentation. That was super informative, and I even learned a lot, so thank you for that, guys. All right, if everybody doesn't know me yet, my name is Mandy. I am the person, not the film. Jeff and Paul hired me solely based off my name, not at all for my skills or my professional background at all. Okay, so I came from Hot Topic for 7 years, where I was a buyer, and that's where I grew up, and that's where I learned everything that I know now. And now I'm with you amazing people, and I'm able to grow that side of our business, and it's been an incredible journey. I came on full-time in August of 2019, and it's been just a ride so far, and I've so enjoyed meeting all of you and getting to know the community, taking all your feedback, and giving you some awesome products. So here's why we care about merch. All right, can I get the first slide, please, gentlemen?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Okay, guys, so I want to first show you why merch matters so much to a studio's business. If you look here, I know this is a lot of words, but just solely focus for me for a second on the yellow areas of this graph. This is the 25 highest grossing media franchises of all time. It might come as a surprise to some and maybe not to others that Pokemon is actually the highest grossing IP of all time. And the yellow portion of their revenue is just solely consumer products and merchandise. Look at Hello Kitty. Basically, their entire business is solely based on merchandise. If you look at Winnie the Pooh, most of it is from that. Mickey Mouse, Star Wars, all of these franchises, one of the largest, if not the largest portion of their business is solely based on consumer products. And that's why this business is so important for Legion M.
And that's why we're so happy to have Mandy on board, because I mean, honestly, like this is a huge part of our model, and it was something that we wanted to find a really great talent to join our team early, because we truly believe in this. Like, a lot of people say, oh, you're doing merch, but aren't you in the film business? You'd be crazy not to do merch in the film business. The biggest, like, look at the yellow line, like Star Wars and Toy Story, Cars. It's bigger than anything else they do. I mean, they create a movie to do merch, and so we're not that far along, obviously, but it's why this is so important. So sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. I mean,
it also explains why we're investing so much money in Hello Kitty. So
yeah,
we taken all of our money.
Yeah.
We put it all on the Kitty.
Hello Kitty.
I mean, I can basically tell you that the reason they made Infinity War was just so they could put all of those characters onto the same T-shirt, and I know I have that T-shirt, and it's my favorite thing in my wardrobe. So, I mean, this is literally, like, this is why it's so important. Merchandise, and it fosters so much. I'll explain more in the later slides as well. But this is just a graph to show you how absolutely important this is, and what it's going to mean to Legion M. All right. So why merch matters so much is it increases franchise development. So with merchandise, you're able to actually develop the franchise in a bigger way, right? And like, for example, you can focus on one character and why does that character matter to the fandom so much, and build up the different areas of the franchise. For example, I know one of our investors is going to love this because he's a huge Supernatural fan like me. But if you've ever seen Supernatural, the TV show, just the car alone, I forgot what kind of car it is, but it's an old classic car, and that character, that car is basically its own character.
1967 Impala 302.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I knew someone would know it. So that car alone is its own character, and her name is Baby, and they were able to make so much money just off Baby merchandise, the car merchandise alone, and kind of build out her character in that way. And so it's a franchise development tool as well. Driving brand awareness. Okay, this is a huge important part of merchandising. Not only are you able to, like whenever someone wears a Mandy shirt, the movie, out in public, and someone says, oh, that's a really cool shirt, what is that? You're able to talk about it and evangelize why, what your fandom is and why this movie is so cool to you. So it brings people into awareness of what this franchise is. And then also concerning with just Legion M brand merchandise, and I told a lot of you when I met you at Comic-Con last year, but the more you guys wear Legion M products, the more brand awareness is going to be out there in the world, right? So the more you wear products for Legion M, thank you very much, Jeff, This necklace here is
Pretty
what
much
I'm wearing
everybody
today.
in this room, by the way,
Yeah.
man, you would
Yeah,
be very
you'd be
proud.
very impressed.
Thank you, everybody. So really, I mean, it brings brand awareness, and then people are going to say, oh, what is Legion M? And then you're able to talk about it, and then that grows our community, which grows our brand, which grows our money, which grows our movies. It's just a domino effect.
Hold on, Mandy, just out of curiosity, how many people here have been wearing something Legion M and had someone ask them about it?
Oh.
And
How many hands are up?
Most, like a lot of them. So, what was I'm curious, like, what was the response for, like, when you explained it to them?
A friend of mine bought stock.
Yeah, see? So there it is.
There we go. Tom
there
says
it
his
is.
friend bought stock.
That's the flywheel.
Because of your shirt, man.
Yep.
Awesome.
You did tell me more, like, what do you mean this is a fan-owned entertainment? How come I haven't heard of this?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, where are you looking? And here's how you find it. So.
Because you're not cool enough to
The secret club.
Yeah. All right, sorry, Mandy, we keep interrupting.
No, that's amazing. That's what we want, you guys. That's the whole point of this. Another thing is, kind of similar to the first thing, but evangelizing to bring in new audiences. So whenever, like for Mandy, for example, right? That, for merchandise specifically, it's not slowing down. We are still, over a year after the initial release of the film, merchandising sales are doing absolutely incredible and bringing so much to the business. And with those merchandise sales, we're able to find new audiences that have never heard of Mandy. Perhaps they are a horror fan or a fan of Nick Cage or whatever, and they've never seen it before, or they just like movies that mess with their head, because that's what it did for me. And they haven't had a chance to know about the film yet. Once they see someone with that shirt on and you're able to talk about it, that's a whole new audience right there. And then they tell their friends about how awesome the movie was, and then it's another domino effect of bringing in a new audience and continuing to bring in revenue for that franchise. All right. Another thing is nurturing the fandom and community. So, for example, I am a huge Harry Potter fan. Everyone who knows me knows this is an actual Harry Potter tattoo. I am a massive fan. And for me, even though I know Fantastic Beasts is happening, but, we'll talk about that later. But the point is that I want to continue my fandom, right? I want to continue loving it and having new merchandise and being able to hold things that are, from the story that I love. And that without that stuff, then it kind of feels like the fandom doesn't really exist anymore, right? So by having new merchandise and creating those tangible things for the fandom, you're nurturing it. You're nurturing their love for that story and for those characters, and you can continue it. And continue to give them things that bring them back in to the story that they love. Make sense? All right, then driving revenues after release. This is, of course, like the #1 thing that we care about, is wanting to continue to drive more revenue for the franchise in a huge way. And that's what we're seeing with Mandy. That's what that's what we do with these big franchises, and why, like Pokemon, for example, continues to do so well. Is you're driving all these sales, and you're getting, because of course theater goes away, then box office kind of drops off, and then VOD will continue to go up, but then it'll kind of slow down after a while. Merchandise is one of those areas that can continue to drive revenue for X amount of time, as long as you keep giving them good stuff.
Awesome.
Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. All right. So how does merch actually work, and how do we drive this revenue? A lot of people don't know there's actually multiple ways that we do drive revenue and will drive revenue through merch. It's not just through our e-commerce store. So as you can see in the very middle, this is the one you guys all know about, is our direct consumer business. That means our online store. That is legionm.com/store. And there we're able to drive business revenue and sell our own merchandise, right? With this also, we are in 2020 going to be doing some other things to drive more sales there via other platforms, via other things that I can't tell you about yet, but we are continuing to grow that business in a really big way. Then there are two other areas of merchandising revenue. One is wholesale, and wholesale is where you actually sell products that you manufacture. So we're manufacturing these through our partners and then selling it to a retailer for them to sell on their e-commerce platform. For example, a lot of you might know that Hot Topic actually started carrying some of our Mandy apparel, 2 T-shirts and the Tiger hoodie, or the Tiger raglan from Mandy. And that was a wholesale thing. So we manufactured the product, and they carried it on their e-commerce store and in some of their brick-and-mortar stores as well. And then there's licensing. So licensing means that you go into a contract basis with a brand or manufacturer or even a retailer, and they manufacture products and sell it on their platform. So for example, that would be like if a collectible company came to us and asked to license Mandy or whatever it might be, then we would license that out to them, and then they would manufacture the product. We still have, with licensing, we still have full control over what they are allowed to do and what not they're allowed to do. So we do all the approvals, we make sure that they're on the right track, making sure they're not going off brand. We still have full control over it, but we're licensing out that brand. That make sense? You can ask me questions later if you'd like. All right, so what is 2020 going to bring for merch? First of all, it's going to be the year of licensing. So, prior to this, we weren't able to really focus on licensing a whole lot. Of course, the team is really stretched, and we all have a lot to do. But this year, we are able to kind of focus on that, make that a big part of our business. The great news is that we have great IPs, that people really want to, other retailers and brands want to license. And there's a lot of longevity for a lot of our IPs. So brands are noticing that, and they want to go into partnership with us. So we're going to be doing some licensing and have some really cool things in the works that I can't talk about yet, but get ready. All right, and then our direct-to-consumer marketing and visibility. So one big thing that I really wanted to let you guys know is that, yes, we do market to the Legion in a big way for selling our product, right? I mean, like I said, it helps us in multiple ways for you guys to also be evangelizing our IPs. However, we do a lot of marketing outside of the Legion. And a big initiative for this year is going to be growing the visibility of our e-commerce platform and our products outside of just our community. All right, and then new IPs. So, of course, we want more IPs to do more products. That is, a huge way to grow business, is to have new characters, new storylines, new assets, new art to play with. And so we're always going to be looking for that as well.
All right.
2020 is going to be a huge year for merch.
Very cool. Thank you, Mandy.
Thank you
Great
very
work.
much, Mandy.
Thanks, guys.
All right, so I think we're going to wrap up pretty quickly.
Yeah, we've got
we have a couple other
one
things.
slide and then
one thing, like we didn't do a comprehensive, and this might be something that we follow up with, like kind of our stated strategic objectives for 2020. But the number one priority is growth. If you look at our phased approach, like what do we need to be focused on right now? It's growth. And, there are some things that you can do to help. We don't want anyone being like cheesy or salesy about it, but if you can help, if there are people that that you think would resonate to our model, tell them about it and continue wearing the Legion M stuff, and all that, contributes to our building of the flywheel. All right, so next up.
By the way, I have to say, I am so excited because if you look at that logo in the upper left-hand corner, this is a significant upgrade to the Valor Award.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's an actual logo.
Yes, it's an actual logo, and it represents something, doesn't it? The logo?
Is that easier?
What do you mean?
Well rehearsed, gentlemen.
We have been promising, so we've been doing Valor Awards since the very beginning, and we've been promising, we're going to make a shirt for you or a pin or something like that.
I thought you meant like symbolic.
No,
like,
no.
Yeah, it's the Valor Awards.
No.
We did make a change to the Valor Awards, too, though. We're no longer spelling it with a U. So we had a U in there for...
It was a fierce debate.
Yep. But without the U, we have officially modernized, and it looks better on the logo.
Yes, and so for all of our long-suffering Valor Award winners, of whom
some
are
of whom
here
are in
today,
this room. Yep.
you know, we will have something for you soon, within the next year and a half.
Logo on it. With this logo on it.
Just wanted to set everybody's expectations.
Yeah.
Over-deliver.
That sounds like an empty promise. Well, but with Mandy on board, I believe that
yeah, we finally have someone who can actually get it done.
So, well, without further ado, you know, one of the things, for those of you who don't know what the Valor Awards are, this is an opportunity for us to recognize people in our community that go above and beyond. And there's a lot of them. And so, you know, like if we could, we'd give out the Valor Awards to hundreds of people because, you know, the community is incredible. But we handpicked, you know, about three to four periodically that we want to call attention to and recognize them and appreciate them. And as Jeff mentioned, we'll also have some piece of merch. But this isn't something like you know, a Valor Award, whatever we end up delivering there, it won't be something you can buy. You have to earn it. And by earning it, it's, you know, it should, like, what our hope is that it really is an honor because it's a select few and it really does come from them kind of setting themselves apart with their contributions.
Yep.
So, you want to introduce our first one?
Yeah.
I gotta get on there. There we go.
All right. Our first winner is Paul Efron. And I don't know how many of you guys have had a chance to meet Paul. He actually came to Los Angeles Comic-Con with us. But Paul was, I mean, let's just say single-handedly responsible for helping change the political state. It hasn't happened yet in the state of Arizona. But as you know, we have had trouble since day one because the SEC regulations that we operate under are nationwide, but there are a handful of states that for whatever reason do not recognize or the local security laws in that state conflict with the national security laws set by the SEC. And it has created enormous hurdles for us to try and jump through with our no fan left behind promise, and we want to let people. So Nebraska was a really tough one. Texas was difficult for a while. Anyway, Arizona has been the hardest one, and he wrote to his legislature and hounded them enough and then connected them with our securities attorneys, CrowdCheck, the company that does our securities laws, so that now they are making the legislative changes to make Legion M stock and all Startup Jobs Act stock work in the state of Arizona. So we thought that was such an amazing individual contribution. Congratulations, Paul.
So Sarah Hanks, who's well known in the equity crowdfunding, you know, sector, literally has, you know, called Paul out and said that, like, without his effort and his work, you know, this you know, it might, not that it wouldn't have ever happened, but I mean, he made it happen, basically. So thank you, Paul. You're amazing.
Can make
I'm
a
pretty
difference.
sure he's tuned in now, too.
I think Paul is on. Do you want to see if we can bring him on, guys?
Oh my God.
Bring him on.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hold on 1 second. Hey,
I am
Paul,
here.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? I'm here.
Yeah.
I can hear you. Paul, I can't see you yet, but it'll probably switch over in a second.
Well, yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
We
Well,
have
Paul,
a different.
I assume you've got an acceptance speech written?
Oh,
You guys should take down the presentation so we can see everybody. Just for a moment.
Yep.
Hold on 1 second. We're,
Thank you. It's nice to have all little. I'd like to thank all the little people for making this possible.
Well
There he
done.
is. Wait, where'd he go?
Well, what I figured out was the way Arizona works, I was able to send an email that Sarah helped me write to all of the 90 legislators in Arizona. The way they have the email set up, I was able to mass mail them one at a time. And I connected 2 legislators, a Republican senator, and a Democratic congressman with Sarah. They had a conference call last week with all of their aides, and they are going to change the rules.
Amazing.
All right. Look at that. Legion M making history again.
Hey, Paul.
We should do a press release on this.
I agree.
Yeah.
Paul, we also, your next assignment, there's a little issue in the Middle East we need you to resolve. So if you could bring your powers to bear on that, that would be incredible.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Awesome. All right. Well, shall we get on to the next one?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Ours is John Taylor, so I'm trying to. All right.
All right.
Are we back to sharing?
Yep.
Awesome.
Looks like it. Okay, cool.
All right.
You
All
want
right,
to take?
yeah, I'll do Matt. All right, so for those of you who haven't met Matt El Camino Conkling, I don't know if Matt's watching or not. If he is, we should bring him on. Matt has been a volunteer vanguard. I mean, he has been, like, I think at LA Comic-Con, he literally, like never left.
Every single
like, from
hour,
to, late
setting
at night.
up, tearing down at
Yeah.
night. Incredible.
Yeah, and he's also been very successful with his meetups in the LA area, and more recently, and pretty damn cool, his car is the featured car in Arch Enemy. This is the car that Joe Manganiello drives, and I don't know if we have a picture of the car. Are we allowed to show the picture of the car? But we're not allowed to. Okay, all right. I know. I keep asking. I want to show it. Joe already put
Well,
it.
Joe tweeted it.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Matt was like just an unbelievable, not only a good sport about making sure that his car was ready and that it could be used in the film, but also I think he had to spend a decent amount of time on set to be there with it. And so, do we want to bring Matt on? Is he available?
I think I see Matt here on the side. Let's have her go. Hey, Matt, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Woo! Yes, I can.
All right, Matt. Congratulations.
Thank you. This is it's been a lot of hard work, but it's been fun. This has been such an amazing experience.
That's cool. How was it like being on set, and how does it feel to have your car in a movie, and more importantly, now be a Legion M Valour Award winner?
It has been an amazing and a tiring. It's crazy. It's so many emotions wrapped up in one day of shooting. It's absolutely amazing that I was able to participate in so many things.
That's fantastic. Well, we are so thankful to have people like you that are helping us out at cons and running meetups, and I think the car was just kind of the icing on the cake. But
yeah,
thank you so much for all that you do.
I can't wait to share the car. It's like it was interesting because, and one thing I'll say, like, you guys may know that, like, when we started production on Arch Enemy, actually before we started, we worked with the director and the producers to say, hey, are there ways that the Legion could get involved, and can we help, and can we add value to the production itself? And the team came back with a list of needs that they had, and one of them was they wanted a kick-ass car. They needed a couple cars, and so they kind of gave a little bit of a sort of creative brief on the type of car they were looking for. And so we put that out to our Legion, and we had lots of submissions and pictures of cars that were, and whoever was accommodating this request needed to know that, like, they might do some damage to the car, but they would repair it. And but what I think is really cool is the director, when he saw all the cars, he completely changed his creative brief. The car that he was asking for is very different from the car that Matt put forward, but I think he felt like, in a way, it brought more creative value to the movie by having, like, that was something that, like, seeing Matt's car inspired him. He had cars that were contributing, like volunteers were contributing cars that were very similar to the creative brief that he had given, or exactly what he was asking for. But he instead said, oh, that's even cooler. I'm going to go that direction. And so, anyway, we'll, when the film, I'm sure when we share the trailer, there'll be a point in time where we can share the car. But it's a badass car, and we're really grateful to Matt for everything that he's done. He's just an awesome volunteer and supporter, and also we appreciate that he's got some badass cars in his portfolio.
That's right. And Mandy's going to be calling you about the merch rights for your car.
We've already talked about it, actually.
Of course. How did we? Yeah. All right, let's keep going because we're going to run out of time here. Let's see.
I think we got one more award winner.
Okay, I'm sharing again. All right. Drum roll, please. You want to do this one again?
We can both do that. This is
right.
Caroline. There's just not enough you can say about Caroline. She's out at Silicon Valley. She's at the cons with us. She's running some of the most successful meetups.
Oh, really?
I'm so bummed that she's not here today. Yeah, I'm so bummed that she's not here today. But and it's just wonderful because we love it when there's people who can come to a con and just will just talk and are so great at explaining what Legion M is about and engaging people in conversation and all that sort of wonderful stuff. So
I know. She's going, what? Okay, now she's going to have to get a new smartphone.
Yeah.
That's all she had last night about the dumb phone she has.
If she's able to join in from the plane, that would actually be pretty spectacular.
Well, we'll congratulate her. We'll celebrate her online, and I'm sure we'll see her soon.
Yeah. So congratulations to all of our. I think that we've reached the end of our programming, the beginning of the Q&A section. I know that we're a little bit over time. You're welcome. If you've got questions, put them around. I'll stay and answer questions. I'll hop up and start talking to you guys. If you have to leave the people in the room, we totally understand. If you want to, and online. But anyway, Taylor, why don't you take it away?
All right, awesome. So everyone, what you're going to hear is the Q&A session has started from our lovely Start Meeting host. And so,
by the way, real quick, Taylor, before you do that, so again, just to reiterate, I said it at the beginning, but if you came in late, if you're on Facebook, feel free to type them in the comments, and we've got people that are monitoring the comments that are going to zap them to my computer right here. If you want to log in, though, to Start Meeting, it's a higher quality video feed, and you can actually come up on camera like we've done with the other folks. So there you go.
Awesome. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, if you have the opportunity to jump on to Start Meeting, that would be awesome, so that you can jump into the Q&A queue. What will happen is we're going to go into Q&A mode, and then you'll have the opportunity to click a little button that enters you into the queue. It's like a little question mark in a speech bubble. So let's switch it over to Q&A mode.
And if anyone has a question here, let us know, and we can.
So I would say, guys, what would you like to do? So we'll have some people queue up here, and then I know we've also got some questions already sourced that Eric has.
All right. Well, here, I've got a couple questions in here that have come through. So let me go in and, hold on 1 second. Okay, this one is good, I think, from Brian Garcia from Facebook. Why don't we have advertisements in theaters, even if it's just a 5-second picture that talks about owning a part of Hollywood?
It's a good question, actually, and it's one we've asked ourselves that, and we've had some discussions. Like early on, there are a couple different platforms that support that kind of advertising, and it's not inexpensive because you're competing with other films, and the trailer spots are especially expensive. We are I wouldn't rule it out. Like one of the things that we're in the process of doing is trying to forge like some strategic relationships with the theater chains where we can help each other out. You know, we'll focus more of our meetups and more of our attention and help them grow their subscription plan or whatever if they're willing to give us something in kind, like advertising space on their screens and such like this. You know, one of the things that I would say, so it's a great idea, and it's definitely like it's something that we would like to have. One of the challenges with it compared to like other areas where we've marketed is that it's harder to track. It's harder to know that the money, and it's not inexpensive, like I said. So if we were to, and I think if you wanted to like buy in on one, you have to like kind of buy in at a kind of high level to, and then there's not a great way to like figure out whether it worked. So I do think it'll get to a point where we're mature enough that we're willing to like stomach a risk like that, and you know, probably have you know, we can build in some like codes and things that can allow us to track it. But it's a great idea, and it's something that, you know, is always on the kind of the docket for like, you know, things that we should be exploring.
Yeah, it's definitely something we want to do.
Yep.
All right, do you want to bring one up, Taylor?
Yeah, or sounds great. We've got a bunch of people in the queue. First up is Stephanie Westerfield-Shea.
Hey, Stephanie. We know Stephanie.
Hey.
Stephanie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you fine. Can you hear
me?
Yes, we can hear you. Stephanie, for those of you who don't know, Stephanie is one of our media response team. That oh, no, am I getting her confused? Okay,
yeah.
Never mind.
Another Stephanie.
I hope stuff like that.
Yeah.
All right, well, yeah, so what's your question, Stephanie?
I was just curious when Film Scout is going to be starting. Is there a specific date that we should be ready for?
That is a great question, and so we're doing, if you aren't familiar with Film Scout, you should be, you can go read about it online, Legion M. There was an article in Forbes about it last year. You know, this is how we go to Sundance and how we bought the rights to Memory of the Origins of Alien. This year, we have an app. The very first ever Legion M app is being developed, and actually, oh, you know what I can do is I could probably pull it up on my phone. Give you like a sneak preview. But anyway, it is literally in review. I don't know if I'm showing up on screen right now, but if so, that's the screen. It is in review at Apple right now, and there'll
be an iPhone app and an Android.
Yeah, and anyway, so we don't know exactly when it will become available, but we expect it to be, you know, hopefully within the next week, definitely before Sundance starts. So stay tuned. Sundance starts about a week and a half from now, so hopefully sometime next week we'll be sending it out to all the existing scouts as well as reaching out just online to anybody who any new scouts that want.
And we have a press release also that we'll be issuing. So.
Yes.
I'm up for that and it's available.
Awesome. Yep.
Yeah, we've been testing it. It looks good. It's a really nice upgrade from last year. Like, you know, there's still, we've got so many ideas for things that we want to do, and there's so much that you can do on an app. But I think if you look at last year's version, you look at this year's version, you're like, oh my gosh,
it's
so much
a step
better.
function better.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Stephanie. Hey, Taylor, we've got a question in the room we'd like to take. Do you want to go ahead?
Well, just,
go for it.
One little one to add on to that one, and
yep.
one to add on to the previous one. The first one is the Film Scout available on the webpage as well, on the Legion M website?
The Film Scout will not be available on a website. You're going to have to do it on a phone. That was a decision that we had to make, and you know, there's advantages and disadvantages to both. But this year, it's going to have to be on a either Android or Apple device, or a tablet. Got it.
And the other one is, have you thought about going on YouTube channels? Like there's the acts like that was made in Mandy. There's a YouTube channel called Man at Arms. I would love to see like a live, like something that could be maybe set in like auction.
Yes.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So first of all, Taylor, can you hear that, or should we repeat it?
Yeah.
You guys should definitely repeat it.
Okay, so he was asking whether he mentioned a YouTube show called Made in Arms. Man in Arms. Sorry, Man in Arms. And I see some nodding heads, some people that are familiar with it. That would be a great candidate, to do like an episode about the Beast. And have we considered talking to like YouTube creators? And so I would say yes. It's an idea that's occurred to us, and it's something that we're very interested in. One of the biggest challenges for Legion M, like this is just, again, startup 101. The challenge of a startup is you always have this many ideas and you've got this many people to do it. And like I said, we are like about we're not going to go out and hire 50 people and explode because we're not at that stage yet. So it's not something that we've done yet. But
well,
Taylor,
we did have conversations with Fortune Fire, right?
Oh, cool! I love that show.
Yeah. Yes.
About them doing the Beast, and there was some reception there.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know where it stands.
Nothing's panned out yet, and that's something that probably Taylor, as he kind of he joined Legion M late last year, and I think that's something that he'll be interested in. So what I'd encourage you, like with an idea like that, it's a great idea. There's two things I'd suggest. One is bring it up in the Facebook group. Like I think that's the Legion M members only. Hopefully you guys, I'm sure you're all aware of it. But that's the best. That's a really good place to do it. The other thing is you can always write an email to team@legionm.com. And there are real people that read every single email and will send it to the appropriate person and, say, hey, Jeff said you should send this to Taylor, or something like that. It used to be Eric. No. We've got, Anyway.
All right, let's keep going.
You got somebody else, Taylor?
Yep. Next up, we've got Lisa S., who I think is Lisa Sudo, if I'm not mistaken. Let's bring her.
Hey, Lisa.
All right.
Lisa, can you hear us?
Lisa, can you hear us?
Lisa, are you there?
Lisa is one of our biggest meetup hosts, and she's up in the Portland area, and I think has done meetups for probably just about every film that we've done.
Oh, she's not on the microphone. Need to read and respond.
Okay. Okay, she's not on the mic, Taylor.
Do we have her question?
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Did she write it somewhere?
Yeah, if somebody could Slack it to me, that'd be great. Yeah, that's fine. Well, in the meantime, this is from Terry, and I love the fact that she phonetically spelled the last name, Wendy Mejia, because I always butcher it, so sorry, Wendy. But she wants to know, have you considered partnering with YouTube reviewers or influencers for potential merch and VOD sales after release?
Yeah,
we actually have Wendy on the line, actually, if you want me to bring her
Oh, do we really?
Yeah, let's bring her on.
Wendy, can you hear us? Wendy, are you there? Wendy's out in a convertible somewhere.
There. It's like the girl from like the video is
Okay, she says there's no mic.
We've got the question.
Yeah.
And,
okay, guys. Let me just chime in and just say one quick thing. Guys, if you don't have a microphone, then don't ask a question in the Q&A. Put it in the chat, and we'll try to find it, because otherwise I'm going to bring you on and it'll just be static.
Yeah, if you raise your hand for the Q&A, that's literally the line to basically come up and present on screen.
Yeah, it's like calling in. Okay, great. So why don't we answer Wendy's question, then just as the text was.
Okay, so the question was about influencers and YouTubers, and have we thought of that as a kind of a viable way to kind of grow our community? And yeah, it's a like Jeff said, it's on the list of things that we want to be doing. We've had some discussions. I know Rob, our head of PR, has kind of done some investigating there. One of the things that I think could potentially be interesting, just like some of the suggestions that came up, if there are YouTubers that you think would make sense that we should contact, I think now that Taylor's on board, these are some of the things that we want to be growing. We feel like at Legion M, like what we've always said, is it's a very natural thing for influencers to support. We're not asking them to sell insurance or do something that's going to be really boring. I mean, most of the influencers that we've had and the people that have, like Kevin Smith and Stan Lee and all those, you know, people that have been like really helpful to us, you know, haven't been, it's not like a marketing engagement, it's just they like what we're doing and want to help us. And, you know, I think there's different levels to this. There's how much of that is out there that we can, you know, take advantage of. But I think the other element is that as we grow and our flywheel becomes, you know, more powerful, we also have something that we can give to them. And so it could be like, you know, we're always sensitive to like spending money and, you know, hiring an influencer to, you know, promote Legion M. That actually has some nuances to it that can be problematic because we're a securities, and if they're, you know, representing a security and we're paying them, then that needs to be disclosed. And so there are some things like that. But if we just have a kind of mutual respect for each other and we promote them, if they're a YouTuber and, you know, we've got a community of people that they might be interested in kind of evangelizing their YouTube channel to, we would do that in exchange for them maybe sharing with their community more about Legion M. So again, it's, you know, it's one of these things that, like, you know, we have a lot of kind of thoughts and ideas around it, and we've done a little bit of it. We've been focused on some of the bigger ones, like a Kevin Smith, but we do believe, and the way we describe it is, we believe there's a huge opportunity with us with micro-influencers. We're not going to go to the, like, Kardashians or anything like crazy like that, but we believe, and we've had some benefit from it. You know, we do podcasts and we do different things, and a lot of that comes from our community. We have a lot of these micro-influencers are already investors, and so, yeah, I think we need to come up with maybe the scalable way to do this is to have like a program that people can be a part of and get approved and, you know, and then get implemented. But it's a great question. Thank you. That was Wendy, right?
Yes. You got another one, Taylor?
We do. We've got Richard Black, who I believe is on the line. Let's bring you in. Richard, are you there?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey,
can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You can't. Loud.
Oh, I can see you there.
There
you go. Hi, Richard. How's it going?
I'm good, good. I just wanted to ask, would it be okay if I offered an idea of some books that I would love to see made into movies?
Sure, like right now?
Like right now.
Throw it out there. You got 10 or 15 seconds. This is your pitch
15 seconds?
Yeah.
Boom. Melanie Brown, The Dragon Prince.
Dragon Prince.
Sorry, there it is. That's my most favorite book. I'm seriously dyslexic, so it's hard for me to read.
Yep.
I've read that book 6 times. It's a series, which is what everybody wants these days, to make a series of movies. And that
if David Baxter is watching, I think he'll be ordering that book online. And
I suggest every Legion Emmer to read it. It's a 6-book series, and it is amazing.
I think the best thing that you or anybody that's got like an idea like that can do is
we're getting it.
I think your audio might be on, Richard. Is to sorry,
no, this happened in our
is to go ahead and put it in the Facebook group, because if people then start to pile on, right? You know, so if you've got the idea from somebody's like, oh my god, someone else is like, oh yeah, or somebody can read it, and it kind of generates momentum. We also have plans for schools and, you know, kind of this idea of what we've done, for example, with Film Scout, how we could extend that to other things like books and IP and comics and that sort of stuff. There's also a whole other side to this, which is, you know, one is, okay, what is the quality of this book, and is this well suited to make a TV? The other whole side of it is, well, are the rights available? You know, what encumbrances are on it and that sort of thing. So it's a wonderful idea. We love to hear ideas, and like I said, I think the best advice that I give you, Richard, on that, and for anybody, is just put them in the group and go from there. But thank you very much for your question. And thanks for joining the live stream.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Sorry, we've got. I had to mute. Yep. Thank you.
All right. Well, so Taylor, Oh, go ahead, Taylor.
Oh, do you guys want to do a few more from online?
I got a couple here that I'd like to do, and we'll see up the next one. This one from Benjamin Charbit on Facebook. Long term, how will investors be able to reap the rewards financially of Legion M? Would it be dividends, an IPO? I'm thinking like a 10-year horizon. And that's a great question. Like we talked about the fact that you own stock in it. And generally, like, typically the way that you make money investing in stock and startups is that stock becomes immensely valuable and you sell the stock. So that's what I would say.
Startup investment.
Yeah, like that's kind of startup
capital.
investment.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the way that works. But I mean, we'll just have to see. It's kind of interesting because of the Jobs Act, like what we're doing in a way is a little bit of like a mini IPO. And, I think we've talked about this before, but, the shares that people own actually are legally tradable. So you can sell your shares to somebody else, which is not the way that it typically is for startups or was prior to the Jobs Act. But the problem is that there isn't like a market for them yet. It just doesn't exist. There's not enough companies like us. But every year we hear more and more rumors about people that I've talked with 3 or 4 companies that are like, yeah, we're building a secondary market for Jobs Act shares. And so we're just going to have to kind of see how that goes. So, I think the short answer to your question is, yeah, it's the value of your stock. And at some point, we will either IPO and go on a major index. If we're successful at some point, we will IPO and go on a certain index, almost certainly. Or maybe there'll be another kind of secondary market that comes up. But that's kind of the end game.
I have a vision for this, and it's a pure speculation, so I don't want to say that this is how things would unfold. But for me, like a lot of companies, the investors are involved in that company in the early phase, and when they go public, they usually cash out, sell all their shares, and then go invest that money into new startups and start the process over. I think one of the things that makes Legion M this kind of unique entity is that our flywheel is based on our ownership, right? And so the way I look at it, and we've had even people like approach us and say, oh, well, what if we just bought you out right now? And it's like, well, why would you buy us out? Like, no, I mean, like that would just buy out the flywheel, like our competitive differentiator. But what I do think there is an opportunity to when we get to a point, and again, like Jeff said, like this is all speculative, and like there are a lot of different outcomes, but in a very successful outcome, our share price would keep growing and would be extremely valuable. And, we'll get to a point where we don't need the money to be bringing in new investors. So we're not diluting our existing shares to raise more money because, at some point we'll be profitable, and the money that we're taking in from projects will be funding the next projects, and we'll be, operating our own flywheel. And what that'll do is if we are, publicly traded or on a market, and we still want to increase the number of shareholders we have, then you'll be selling your shares to someone. And so if we have 1 million people and everybody sold half their shares, now we'd have 2 million people in the community. We didn't raise any more money because, well, hopefully at that time we don't need money, but that money that we raised would instead go to you guys or whoever was willing to sell some of their shares. And so that's like a
It's
scenario.
a good way to look at it. It's a really good way to look at it.
Who knows if we can do it, but that would be like the dream scenario, I would say.
All right, one more quick question here, and then we'll throw it back to you, Taylor.
Yep.
But Jason Ray asks, when does a new season of Pitch Elevator return? Perfect format for all of us who want to.
Yeah.
And we've got, the short answer is first we have to finish up last season of Pitch Elevator, which is something that we've talked about before, and it's been a long kind of history as to where we are now. We are working on that literally right now, finishing up the last season of Pitch Elevator, and we want to get through the complete cycle. We have a lot of amazing pitchers who have, submitted their ideas and got narrowed down to the finalists, and so we're committed to getting that taken care of so that we can talk about the potential future seasons. We love the idea of pitch elevator. Like it's one of my favorite kind of Legion M concepts. But we got to take care of business first before we can try and take that to the next level. So stay tuned. All right, Taylor, you want to go ahead and?
Sure thing. We have someone named Xiao who's on the line. Let's
Xiao.
Of course,
someone
Xiao
named
Lopez.
Xiao. We know Xiao.
Xiao's up.
Xiao, are you there?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Close then.
Maybe.
I know he's very
deserving.
Yes, very deserving.
Xiao is fun.
Xiao.
Xiao, are you there?
Did he type his question? Maybe.
Says his webcam is on. But if not, then we.
Well, get back in line, Xiao, so that we can see you.
Well, next up we have Ryan Palmer. We can go to Ryan.
All right. Hello, Ryan.
Ryan, are you there?
I think he needs to speak, right? So if he's talking, then the system automatically pulls him on?
Yes. So you're unmuted, Ryan, if you're there.
Senses the microphone.
All right. Well, should we go on to the next one? And
Okay.
Ryan, if you figure it out, hop back in line.
Why don't we answer the questions here, it seems?
Yeah, let's go to a couple more over here.
It might also be more efficient, because I'm worried that we're not going to get to as many.
Okay, Edgar A. Velez asks, how long your shares remain in escrow before you receive your stock certificates? So that's a great question. And so first of all, just so everybody's aware, like we don't have paper stock certificates for Legion M. Like everything is held electronically. In fact, even the notion of an electronic share certificate is something that some transfer agents have, other transfer agents don't have. So your actual, like the formal record of your share is effectively held by the transfer agent with all the records from WeFunder. So first and foremost, if you've invested in Legion M, initially the money goes into escrow and then it closes and the money comes to Legion M, and at that point, so you can always go to WeFunder, you can check your profile, and you should see your closed investment, and you'll see an executed contract that you can look at that is, it's effectively the legal contract that says you bought this many shares for this much money. And so that's kind of like the legal documentation, that you've got. Now, in addition, we have a transfer agent, and we're not required to do this, but we've been working with transfer agents that allow you to effectively log in so that you can kind of see your holdings, and if you actually have other holdings in other companies that happen to be held by the same transfer agent, it's kind of logging into your Schwab account. We're in the process of transferring transfer agents, and sadly, we've been stuck in this process for a very long time, but we're very close to finishing it up. And we also are releasing, it's in beta testing right now, and there's a link that you can go to sign up as a beta tester. Pretty much everybody that signed up should have received an invitation, and if not, send an email to team@legionm.com. To come beta test the new portal, which is another place where you can log in. We've developed a Legion M member portal where you can log in. There's a bunch of questions in there about projects. That's where we're going to be hosting the Impulse. You can submit feedback and fill out a profile, your contact info. And one of the things that you can do is you can see, these are all the shares that you bought and at what time. So if you're not already, go ahead and sign up to be a beta tester of that, and we'll get you in as soon as we can. We should be rolling it out to everybody quite soon if you want to just wait, maybe another week or two. And on the transfer agent front, we should have an update on that as well. So I hope that answers your question. If not, or if you've got questions, or if you've got questions about your specific situation, send an email to team@legionm.com, and it'll get routed probably to Michelle, and she'll give you the latest update, or it'll get routed to me. But we're happy to answer any questions that you've got in that regard. All right.
So I think we have Lisa's question.
Okay. Go ahead and do it.
Yeah. So Lisa asks, she's asking about some of our early SEC filings. Where are we at with collecting the sponsor loss write-off? And I think you maybe mentioned that earlier, the AR write-off from the Stan Lee tribute event. And can you explain the assets write-off from the SEC financials? So as Jeff mentioned, in our, I think it was 2017, we did a Stan Lee tribute. And it was a handprint ceremony that we did. And we had multiple sponsors. And I think it's about time we just named the sponsor because, we've kept their name quiet because out of respect, and it was Acumen. Acumen, I don't know if you remember, they were the company that had the projector phone. And they were a startup, and they were very aggressive and wanted to be associated with Stan, and they got their logo everywhere. And, we did a deal with them, and they were a big part of the overall sponsorship and revenue for the Stan Lee handprint ceremony. Thankfully, we also had other, responsible sponsors like Audible and what was the car company? Hyundai?
Kia.
Yes, Kia. And multiple other sponsors. So we ended up, the project overall was still actually very worthwhile, but we had to write off this. We chased them, and they, they kept telling us, "Oh, we're getting you the money. We're just waiting." They're a startup in like themselves, and I don't even know if they're still alive. We've sent legal letters to them. We've gone after them. Maybe we can even provide a little more kind of information about it. We've, for the most part, kind of given up on collecting it. And it's a few $100,000, so it is a meaningful amount of money. But they just flaked on us, and it was like a major disappointment. And like what I would say, if they were here to defend themselves, they would probably say and what they've told us is that they do still intend to pay it, but they're a startup with no money, so there's not much we could really do. We could, we could sue them, and it would probably cost us, half the amount of money and time and energy to go after it. So we haven't, I wouldn't say we've given up on it, but it's not our number one priority is collecting against that.
And from an SEC standpoint, we took that as a loss at the time. So if we are able to do it, it'll be like a bonus, amount of money that comes in.
Yeah, so it's reflected, and I think in the financials that we showed you does not include that number.
So I showed that little spike. Those were the sponsors that actually paid their bills.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah. Beth, I'm going to butcher this. Esquivel. Why are we not able to suggest movie ideas?
What do you mean?
I'm assuming. Well, so here's this goes back to actually the whole idea behind Pitch Elevator. If you're not familiar with Pitch Elevator, we built a full-size elevator set on the floor of a Comic-Con, and anybody in the world was allowed to step in, and you had 2 minutes to pitch your idea for a movie or a TV show. There was a cameraman and a countdown timer inside, and so we ended up collecting. You could also submit them online. So I think, Beth, that's what you're asking. Like, if you've got an idea for a movie, could you pitch it? And so with Pitch Elevator, and I think that this illustrates why we did Pitch Elevator and the fundamental challenges with it, right, is we had 400 pitches that were submitted. It was open for a couple of weeks, and we were at one Comic-Con. To actually watch those pitches, one person would take 10 hours, right, just to watch those pitches one time. If you wanted to actually say, okay, well, which of these are the top 5%, the top 1%, narrow it down, all that sort of stuff, it would take a massive amount of time for a single person, and you would effectively have one person's opinion on whether that was a good idea or not. And it's just, it doesn't work. It's not scalable. This is why Walt Disney doesn't accept pitches or anybody. You know, it's like that's not the way that it's set up. But we look at it, and again, from a Silicon Valley perspective, we're like, well, we've got this amazing resource that most other entertainment companies don't have, which is a large community of fans. And what
people
if
that have their finger on the pulse.
What if we built a game that allowed all of these people, you know, in our Legion and in our community to come in and rate and evaluate these ideas and narrow it down to like the top 30, and then, you know, or the top few, whatever. In our case, it was 33, and then from there we kind of dig into it. So Pitch Elevator works because we're crowdsourcing the idea and we're crowdsourcing the filtering. Like, if you don't have that filtering part of it, it doesn't work. And we think it's a brilliant strategy and a wonderful way to literally open the gates of Hollywood. When we did that elevator, we had small children, you know, we had people that, like, literally at the end of it, we're so thankful just for the opportunity to, you know, because, you know, our whole thesis is that anybody can have a great idea. What most people lack is the ability to get it in front of people who can make it happen. And if we can close that gap, we can do it. So that's what Pitch Elevator is all about. And like I said with the previous question, we're coming back to finish up season 1 of it. That one kind of took on a life of its own because we decided to try and turn it into like a TV show. Like, what if it was American Idol for movie pitches? And so because of that, it kind of scaled up, and then, you know, we had some success. And anyway, so now we're kind of more focused on, we just want to finish the program and position ourselves, because we have talked to a lot of sponsors and we've talked to a lot of outlets. You know, this would be a wonderful thing to take on the road and go to every Comic-Con in America, you know. So.
Well, and we have another element, something that we're working on. So, like, Film Scout is a really cool, you know, personification of what the platform could be, right? And that's to go buy a produced film at a film festival. But, you know, we don't see Film Scout as being kind of contained to those boundaries. It is for now, and for that execution, for going to Sundance and buying a film, that's how we're using Film Scout. But it's Film Scout as a technology and as a kind of part of our platform is something that can be adaptable. And so we have some ideas and some stuff that, you know, one of which we hope to bring to life early in 2020 is the idea of going out and doing IP scouting, where people can help us find, just like someone came on and recommended a book, you know, those types of things. We can, with our community, we can scour the planet for content that is ripe and ready for being produced. And we can not only scour the planet, but then we can evaluate whether those nominations or those submissions are actually viable, and do enough people respond to it to make it worthwhile. And when they do, then that can be something that we dive in on and engage. So these are all, you know, like Pitch Elevator, Film Scout, all of these things, and this new initiative that I won't even put a name on. We do have kind of a name for it, but they're all parts of our kind of how we see our platform evolving to kind of increase our competitive advantage in the marketplace.
All right. Well, you know, I think that we're probably going to need to wrap this up. I don't know. Are there a lot of people in the queue, Taylor?
We've got about 8 people in the queue.
I mean, I'm also happy to, like, divide and conquer if you want to, like, or I'm happy to talk to people online. But I feel like we should wrap up. The 49er game's about to start.
Exactly.
You know, there's going to be a revolt.
To get going. Yeah.
So,
or what we can also do is, you know, put those questions into a thread somewhere and answer them.
Yeah.
We can do a thread in the group or on the public page, and then people can comment their questions if you guys want to answer them in text that way, or some other.
Yeah, you know, if you don't mind, Taylor, if you or someone can do that, like collect the questions from the people that are in the queue that want to come up. We'd love to bring everybody on, and I'm sorry,
it could just go on for.
Yeah.
We've been going.
And I am happy, you know, like I said, we'll be here.
It's been 2.5 hours. Oh my God! This is our marathon. Wow. And our goal was to be
I know.
quick this
We
time.
didn't even do our content slate, which
Oh,
is usually
God.
like,
Oh, my
like
God.
the longest part.
All right. Well, thank you for suffering through this.
Yes. Yes.
And thank you for the people that came. Thank you for being here, and for the people that tuned in on a Saturday. Thank you for tuning in, and let's keep building this. Let's keep generating that flywheel and shaking up this industry. We've got a great opportunity in front of us, and I think we can not only create a really worthwhile and valuable business, but we can have fun doing it and do like cool, impressive things that will make history.
That's right.
All right. So
Rock
thank
and
you
roll.
again. All right. Thank you,
guys.
Taylor,
Thanks
and Mandy,
so much.
and
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Take care.
All right.
So what do we do? Hang up?
Yes. Okay, everybody. So if you are still hanging out right now and you've got a question that you would like to have answered, what you can do is take this opportunity to go to Facebook and jump into the members only group. We'll make a post there, and then you can comment your question, and then Jeff, Paul, anybody will answer that for you. So I think that's probably the most effective way to do it. We're also going to save this chat, so if you want to comment your question now just so that we have it in the messages in the chat, please do that. We're going to keep it, and then we'll try to answer them as best as we can. But I would say the best thing that we can do is to have you guys take your questions and put them into the members-only group on Facebook. We'll create a post shortly so that you guys can comment on that. All right. Other than that, as you may have noticed, this has been recorded, so we're going to take this down and we're going to put it up on YouTube for posterity. And it's also currently on Facebook as well. So thanks everyone on Facebook. Thanks everybody on Start Meeting. And that's it. That should be it. We're going to end it here.